thank real quick the board for this special meeting. It's unusual to have a meeting on the afternoon, but I think it was very interesting for the public to listen to what's going on the roads and our good landfill. And I hope the public's out there listening to this or comes to it. May 31st, call this meeting to order. And I'd like to have Martin, perfect time. Martin, perfect time. Would you say the pledge allegiance for us? Okay, everybody stand, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you remain standing for a minute? Bob, would you come on up to the mic? I have a special treat for you. This man sings God Bless America like you've never heard it before. And it's just outstanding, and this will be our prayer and start of our meeting for today.
I hear him sing every Sunday.
Every Sunday, yep. So listen to the words, and it's almost like a prayer itself.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann, for letting us share Bob today. Thank you. Okay, Sarah, would you please read?
Public comment. The first 15 minutes of each regular session is set aside for members of the public to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the board but not appearing on the agenda. Items presented under public comment may not be discussed or acted upon by the board at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public is invited to comment at the time the item is called for consideration by the board. Any person addressing the board under public comment will be limited to a 3-minute presentation to ensure all interested parties have an opportunity to speak. The handouts to the board must be submitted to the chief clerk of the board for distribution to the supervisors. Anyone addressing the board needs to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium. Also, all persons addressing the board must state their name and county of residence for record.
Okay, before we get started, I'd like to have a little bit of announcement in the public section. Rhonda Cargill, our clerk of the board, just had her daughter just had her first granddaughter, or grandson, excuse me, Calvin Kristen Goldman, and congratulations to her, and that's why she's not here today. It's her first grand.
So Sarah's taken over.
And then David, would you like to do your presentation, please?
At this time, I'd like to invite to the mic Elizabeth Turner, who's here on behalf of Bill Turner. And I'd also like to introduce my wife, Leslie Rogers, who's here representing the Board of Trustees for the Chowchilla Elementary School District. Would you please stand, and you can come with Elizabeth as well to the dais. Make sure it's on green light.
Right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us. My name is Elizabeth Turner, as you got from the introduction. I'm an assistant coach with the Wilson Middle School Speech and Debate Team, and we just want to thank you so much for your support The entire community has been wonderful in watching these students grow throughout the semester. We really couldn't have done it without the community support, so thank you very much.
Anything you'd like to say, Les?
No. We're just incredibly proud of our speech team. They have gone to state, and what place did they get?
At state, they were finalists.
Yeah, finalists at the state
Finalists
meet.
at the state level.
Fantastic.
So we're
Cool.
incredibly
That's really
proud
nice.
of our young people and the job that Mr. and Mrs. Turner are doing, and we just look forward to much more success.
I'm going to present them with some certificates. So if you stay up there. Do we have Andrea Jimenez in the group? Oh, okay. I'll give those to you. And then Hannah Song. The speech debate team member and a finalist, right?
That's right, our next
State finalist.
Wow.
Right. And we want to recognize Zoe Bernard as well. And Zoe's not here, huh? Okay. Oh, okay. And then also we'll mention Christina Poor, who was a speech and debate team captain and also a finalist at the state.
Fantastic.
So we want to congratulate them. And let's get our pictures up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to tell you how amazing this area is because this is Chowchilla, California. This is Chowchilla, California, and we went to the state finals. The state finals. And these kids were finalists at the state finals. That means they took the state by storm. I mean, that's incredible. That's like winning the Valley Championships and the state championships as well. So we're really proud of them. Congratulations, young lady. She could probably teach all of us something about speaking. Thank you.
Okay, we have another special public announcement today, and we have John Anderson here, but I'd like to have the vets, VFW, stand up. And Norm, could you come on up?
For another deal, Mr.
Commander?
Chairman.
Oh, this is another deal?
Yeah, this is public, open,
Okay, well,
whatever you
okay.
call it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. I'm here representing Senator Anthony Cannella. Pardon my cold. And also, pardon my dress, but I called Tom this morning. I said, what's the dress code for this afternoon?"
I said like an Okie.
He said, yeah. You're close to North Fork, right, so you can wear the US. Anyhow, I'm here representing Senator Anthony Cannella, and I just wanted to announce that he's recently been appointed as the vice chair of the Rules Committee.
Wow.
Now, most people don't know what the Rules Committee does. They assume Senate rules. They make rules for all the people that are in the committee. But they do one other very extremely important thing. When the governor makes an appointment to a position, it goes to Senate rules, and they make a up or down vote on that recommendation. And about 90% of the time, whatever they say, the full Senate will agree with.
Wow.
One of the problems is like the rest of the legislature, that committee is stacked. I think there are 2 Republicans and 9 Democrats. But we do have a vice chair. So if at any time, like Transportation Commissioner, 3 of them are open now. And Mr. Assembly from Fresno, was not reappointed, so.
Oh, that's right.
We're hoping that somewhere in the Central Valley, we can get somebody on the Transportation Commission. You know, you don't realize, but there's over 100 state departments and thousands of probably boards and commissions and so forth, plus the 7 agencies up there, and they all are appointed by the governor. Most of them with the advice and consent of the Senate, so it's a very important position.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind you, we are still here, and I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Thank you.
John, can you get him to support the heavy maintenance of Madera County?
You know, he was part of that. He did go up and and they're going to get him at least to go past Chowchilla up to Merced now, or some kind of a linkage or something. So yeah, we'll be kind of in the center. I don't know why not.
All right, should be.
Thank
you, John.
Thank you for talking about that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Norm, where'd you go?
We have to smile, man.
Okay, stand up, please. After Memorial Day yesterday and all the events that we went to, these guys went to how many events? 4? Just in the morning, in different ceremonies. Just outstanding group. But what's really outstanding, and I'll let Norm read this off because he's the commander this year, but it's amazing what these guys have accomplished just by all the stuff they do in our community. I mean, from helping kids to helping the elderly, just everything that they do, they won this award. So, Norm, I'll let you read it.
Thank you, Chairman. Our post and, you know, the congressional charter requires us to do several things with the community: foster patriotism, instill pride in democratic values, history. And so many of the things we do that you're familiar with, we have an oratory competition with middle schoolers and an essay competition with high school kids. And I tell you what, you think about the future generations, you read what these kids say about their country, and you're not worried anymore when you read about it. You know, we did, with the help of a lot of members, including Sam Pistoresi, we did 24 Christmas baskets, and I think another 16 Christmas with turkey and hams over Christmas, and then we also gave out bicycles over Christmas to school-age children. So, and then, as many of you know, we have one of the best honor guards around. You see us at a lot of events, but in Fresno, when they need a big event at the VA hospital, or Clovis needs a big event at their memorial district, they call our honor guard out from Madera. That's how good they are. And so I'm really happy that we're here to talk about. So what we achieved in doing all that was known as All-State Post, which is one of the top posts in the state. And so this is the recognition of that by basically doing all the community things we're supposed to do by helping the community. And it's a team effort with all these guys here. You see some of these guys have white hats. That's what you get when you earn this. And so you'll see me someday wearing my white hat around, and it's a real distinction. And I do want to mention, though, this is great we're doing this and timely, but we're still in the running for All-America Post, which is one of the top posts in the country. So we've only won that one other time, and we'll know the end of the month if we get that. So I want to thank you for all the support the county gives this organization and what it is, and we're really happy to have this. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. But anyway, John with the bat for you, and he has a presentation to you, too.
Yeah, again, this is the senator recognizing the fact that you are a 2015-2016 All-State Post status for outstanding things that you do for the rest of veterans in the community.
And I might mention that John Anderson is a member of our post.
That's right.
Come on, I've got a sore voice because I've practiced.
You only got through it once, huh?
I can only last about 30 minutes. Let me get in the back row.
Okay, any more public comment? Tom has one? Yep.
Too bad y'all left in the Fresno Bee yesterday. Yesterday. Had new faces on. They always have a new faces in the boardroom thing, and so they had our new Madera County librarian. Patrick Fitzgerald has joined Madera County as a new county librarian. He has worked with multiple rural library systems that will oversee the operations of the Madera County Library and its 4 satellite branches in Chowchilla, Madera Rancho, North Fork, and Oakhurst. He came clear from North Carolina. We went and done a recruitment, and he flew out here to be interviewed, and he was so impressive. We hired him, and they put that in the paper, so I don't know who does that. We do that, but that's pretty cool. So I just want to thank him.
He's already,
he's doing so many things already.
He's already running on all 8 cylinders, too, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's going 24/7, so.
Yep. Okay, anybody else? That's it? Okay, bring it back. Item 3.
Pending legislation.
Robert?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Robert Jeffers, Chief of Staff for District 3. I have a quick update at the request of your board at your June 15th meeting when we presented a letter of opposition to AB 2395. This was in reference to telecommunications and allowing legacy providers to switch over to new technology. At your request, you wanted more information. The board was divided at that time, kind of understanding why RCRC was doing what they were doing. Staff in the interim met with RCRC, and it was with Paul Smith, their senior legislative advocate, and also Assemblyman Patterson's staff, because he was supportive of the legislation. In short, RCRC is not opposed to the transition from legacy equipment. They are more concerned with certain provisions of the bill that require a lot of what they call trust me's. Not that they necessarily distrust AT&T or any of the legacy carriers, but they're seeking a little bit more ironclad protections for rural county residents. So their statement of opposition was an attempt to try and get amendments made. And as of Friday, we do have an update that the legislation was put into the Assembly Appropriations suspense file. Meaning that it's there to be looked at and it's probably not going to be heard for the rest of the session. So there's still a couple options before your board. We can continue to send forward the letter of opposition. We can wait and see what amendments come back out in the fall before we take a position. Or, of course, there's always the option of taking the support position of the legislation. But I'll take direction from your board.
Well, I think we should keep opposing it until we know there's good language in there. Until then, we're screwed up in the mountains area, so.
If we do the opposition with the amendments that are recommended by RCRC?
RCRC does not have amendment language yet. That's one of the issues we had in getting an opposition with opposed unless amended position. Is they don't have language yet. Yeah. They're still trying to get their heads around the best way to approach that.
So the most important thing is it's tabled right now, and we need to
suspense
watch it. We
file,
just
yes.
need to watch it and make sure that we follow, listen to RCRC and CSAC or anybody like that, or our lobbyists, and make sure that we follow it and track it and make sure that it changes the way we want it.
Have we sent the letter in opposition?
We have not sent it yet.
I think we ought to, with the caveat to ask, oh, that's right, you were going to check on that.
Right.
Did you get a chance to?
Yeah, that's why we got the new report.
Okay.
So I want to thank Dave for putting a little caution note on that last time we had a meeting, so, or we would have had an opposition.
What did Patterson have to say? Why is he in support of it?
Patterson's support stems just simply from a free market mindset. He doesn't think it's right. Currently, the way it's written regulatorily wise, everyone has a right to a telephone line, and it's written in such a way that it's the copper lines. His point of supporting it is that he believes the free market should be allowed to move as it needs to replace this technology, however the plans go. RC doesn't hold that stance. They want to protect rural residents and particularly the poor residents in many of these rural counties.
I'd like to see what comes out of the hold before we get
So you're going to keep on top of that, Dave?
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thanks, Robert.
The
Good report.
direction then is to take no position until,
Just watch, yep.
understood, thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Robert, would you give me a copy of it? I'm going to go ahead and write one with it anyway.
Yeah, it won't hurt.
No. They just need to know that we're really concerned with it. If we don't, they don't know, there's,
Well, the thing is, you don't want to jump the gun either, because it could come
they
out
can
to
put
be-
it behind one of these bills you don't even know about, and we're screwed,
That's right.
so.
That's right. Okay. Anything else? Ledge? Nope. Okay, bring it back. 4, consent calendar. 4A, please. Read that.
Consideration of approval to authorize staff to apply for the active transportation program and safe routes to schools to enhance the walking, bicycling routes in the community of Fairmead, and authorize the Public Works Director to execute the application for submittal to the Madera County Transportation Commission.
Brett?
There was no backup on how much the grant was for, how much money's in there, what it's going to cost.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We did attach the application itself, but the guidelines do say there is a minimum of $250,000 that we can go for the Friends and
So
Community
minimum,
of Fairmead.
it can be anywhere above that.
Above that, depending on what we include in the grant.
Have you got a design yet or anything? Or?
Well, we do have some, when staff met with the community of Fairmead, they did stress some need for sidewalks, for example, and also flashing beacons for safety, and also we're entertaining maybe also a traffic study. Maybe we can do a traffic study using this money, and that will give us a plan of what to do in the future. And of course, we will limit the scope of work. We will limit the work to the funds that we get so that we don't obligate the county for additional monies.
Dave? Yeah, thank you. I want to just thank Ahmad for the 11th hour work that we both put in, and Norm as well for the 11th hour work. We were told originally that things might not happen, and we talked, and we were able to get things on the road, and I really appreciate that, because that means a lot to our district. It means a lot to Community of Fairmead and Friends, and on their behalf, I want to thank you, too, for going that extra mile. In fact, I think we talked at 11 o'clock or 11:30, somewhere around there.
Yes, sir.
We were both up churning on this thing, and I'm glad we got something going on it.
It is, if I may say, it is a very challenging grant. The deadline is, we don't have much time to do it. It's very data intensive. We need to provide some data that we don't have, basically, or it doesn't fit the profile. But we're going to do everything we can to see what we can do by June 15th. At least we will have an application in, but the chances of acquiring this grant is not very probable.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Unfortunately. Just going through the guidelines and just going through it, it's just there are certain guidelines that we need to hit. But we're doing everything possible. I already talked with Self-Help Enterprises. They agreed to volunteer some time. They've done these grants before, and we're going full force with it.
That's great. Well, maybe we'll really have some good fortune.
Hopefully, yeah, why
and
not?
make it happen.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why I had asked, I mean, I don't know if, did anybody else's when they looked at, I mean, there's like zero, there's no numbers in here at all. There's no.
We have not, you mean on the application itself? It's just the sample, just to give you an idea what the application
On the consent
pertains.
calendar.
Oh, okay.
Oh, on the
It's on
consent.
consent.
Oh,
Yeah.
apologize.
Go ahead,
Just to turn
Norm.
in the application.
And then, yes, Chairman, members of the board, and just to follow up Supervisor Frazier's question, this is really just approval to submit the application. The amount we actually will, because it's time sensitive, the amount we actually will get and all that will be determined going forward. So we really don't have that information of how much the project may or may not cost. This is really just getting the authority to submit the
Yeah,
application.
that's to say, this is just authorizing them to move forward with it and then take it from there.
Right. There's a lot of need there in that community. No
yes,
sidewalks, some streets are not paved.
Absolutely. Everything they
I'd love
need,
to
we
see
can
all
get.
of that happen in the future, and, you know, it was kind of like over there in the Acres and Country Club. A lot of people were allowed to develop these communities without following through on major infrastructure, And we don't do that anymore naturally, but we're cleaning up the mess that somebody else left behind as far as these omissions.
Previous supervisor,
Right.
before all of us.
These omissions that should have actually taken place to begin with. And, it's just, I think this would be a great way to do it, and let's hope for the best on it.
Any more questions from the board? Bring it to the public.
We got county councils.
County council?
Chairman and members of the board, I'd just like to point out that staff is requesting authorization to apply, not accept the grant. So this would likely be something that would come back to you for formal approval.
Anyone from the public? Bring it back to the board.
I move.
Can I make that motion?
Yes, I would like to. I'd like to move that we go forward with this grant and apply for, approve the application.
Second. Second. Have a first from Dave, a second from Brett. Can I have the vote?
Supervisor Brett Frazier,
Yes.
Supervisor David Rogers.
Yes.
Supervisor Max Rodriguez,
Yes.
Supervisor Tom Wheeler,
I think so.
Supervisor Rick Farnelli,
Yes. Thank you.
Just wanted to see if you got that in there.
5-0 vote.
Not a regular session.
Good job, Sarah.
Okay, item 5, please read that into the record.
Thank you. I want to say that. Thank you to everybody.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Would you like to say something? Come ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Usually hear me on back 40. Made me sick when I listened to this gentleman says that we have till the 15th. Geez, I don't know how long we've been trying to get this thing done. We really need, let's just don't hope for it, let's just get it done, because we have a lot of young people out there and younger families that we just deserve to have, like every other community. We'd like to have our roads done and our sidewalks. We have a lot of people get out there and just walk, and they are literally, you know how these little county roads are. People just fly by, and there's no real safe place to even jump out of the way. So if everybody is supportive of it, we thank you, and we appreciate all the hard work so that we can get it done.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think the anticipation is that the grant will be done. Whether or not we get the grant is the question.
Yeah.
And let's hope for that on the best. A little prayer won't hurt.
My name is Vicki Ortiz. I'm with Fairview Community and Friends. I just wanted to add, Barbara Nelson's not here right now, but she did want to make sure that we say thank you. Thank you for the work that has been done to the community. I see the road department go out there. I think we have a really good relationship with the road department. The requests are online. They're nice staff out there. If there's a question, I can call them. We really appreciate that. I'm trying to get the rest of the community, our group's trying to get the rest of the community so they could do their own online there too, but I usually send it over there, but that's nice. Well, we did talk to Jerome Jackson at the beginning of these meetings before Dave Rogers. He was very helpful as well too, listened. We explain all the things that we need. Some of them can be done and some of them can't. Some of them require grants and some of them don't. As we said, we're going to hope that we're going to get these grants this year, but if not, then we're going to be back next year.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item 5.
Presentation on Transportation Infrastructure and Solid Waste Management Program. 1, discussion and direction on transportation capital improvement projects and funding sources. 2, discussion and direction on maintenance of existing transportation infrastructure. And 3, discussion and direction to staff on options to address financial challenges for the Madera County Solid Waste Program.
That's all?
Good afternoon. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Ahmad Al-Kayat, Director of Public Works. With me here I have Mr. Jared Carter, Deputy Director for Capital Improvements Project, and Mr. Brad Phillips, Deputy Director for Maintenance and Operations. We're going to take part one of this item 5, which is the transportation infrastructure. The Public Works Department is responsible for maintaining approximately 1,511 miles of road throughout the county. The department also provides maintenance services and improvement projects for road maintenance districts, which account for approximately 400 miles of roadways. In addition, the department is also responsible for maintaining approximately 145 bridges of various sizes throughout the county. We will present information regarding the county's existing transportation infrastructure and efforts to maintain this, along with capital improvement projects and funding sources related to transportation maintenance and improvement projects. We are here to take all your questions. After very short presentations, we will start with Mr. Jared Carter. He will go over the capital improvement projects that we've done, funding sources, and you may start.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Jared Carter with Public Works. As Ahmad mentioned, I'm the Deputy for Capital Improvement Projects. So today, this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about roads and bridges and our capital improvement projects that we've done related to that infrastructure. And hopefully Sarah can get the presentation up there. There we go. All right. So, as I mentioned, roads and bridges, we'll talk about capital improvement projects. A little overview of what we're going to talk about. Talk about some of the funding programs at the federal, state, and local level. Talk about, as far as our road and bridge projects, we'll talk a little bit about project selection, discuss some and show you some of our completed projects, and then also talk about some of our current projects that we're working on, that we have either program for funding or are working on design. And then also just touch a little bit on some traffic engineering stuff related to stop signs and speed zones, which I know is something that's very common that comes up. So we'll talk a little bit about that just briefly. And then we'll have some questions. So to start out some funding programs, just some basic stuff related to most of our funding programs. All of our funding programs, for the most part, we go to the Local Assistance Program Guidelines, which is a manual that's published by Caltrans. They are essentially the administrating agency for most all of the funding that we obtain, whether it's federal or state. We also work through MCTC. We typically have competitive project fundings are usually competitive or formula depending on what the program is. Competitive can be anywhere from regional competition for the funding, state competition, or even nationally, depending on what the program is again. And then funding, formula funding is typically done through some very complicated formulas at times, whether it be by population, by maintained mileage, various other things that determine what kind of, or the amount of funding we can get. Most of the programs require some sort of match. Some are 100% funded, but in most cases, what we deal with, we do have match requirements for local dollars, and all of our match for our projects usually come from our road fund. We don't typically ever use general fund to match any of the funding that we have for our transportation projects. And then they're also all generally reimbursement programs, meaning we spend the money out and do the project, and then we seek reimbursement from the state or from the federal level. And so what that requires is we have to have the funding up front to be able to cash flow the project and get it done and then seek reimbursement. As I mentioned, most all of the programs are administered through Caltrans or at the local level, MCTC, the Transportation Commission. And then we also have the Local Assistance Procedures Manual, which is the manual that we, again, published by Caltrans, Local Assistance, and that gives us our guidelines and sort of the rules we have to follow when we're utilizing the various funding sources as far as the records we have to keep, and the different procedures we have to follow. So some of the programs that we have, I'll start with the federal. And these are not all the programs that are available. These are mainly the ones that we deal with for projects that we do, so we're pretty familiar with them. The Highway Bridge Program, HBP, we have tons of acronyms for things. So HBP essentially is it's a federal program for replacement, repair, or rehabilitation of bridges. So most all the bridge projects that we do in the county use HBP funding, and for the most part that does require a match on those. We have Congestion Mitigation Air Quality, or CMAQ, which is designated specifically for air quality improvement type projects, so sidewalks, bike lanes, things that improve congestion or provide other means of transportation other than driving your car that causes pollution. We have the Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP, which is mainly focused on safety improvements. It's specifically tied to areas of strategic highway safety program, different areas of transportation facilities that do safety improvements. And then we have the active transportation program, which is actually the program that we just talked about a little while ago for the Friends of Fairmead. That is a kind of a newer program. It's a program that was developed to bring a bunch of stuff together. So the former Safe Routes to School, trails, things like that, were all brought into this program, active transportation program, and it's centered around doing projects to create active modes of transportation, so bicycling, walking, equestrian, things like that. On the state side, again, most of the ones we deal with, the Regional Surface Transportation Program, which is a funding source that comes, it's actually federal money and it's exchanged at the state level to where we can utilize it for maintenance and road improvements. The Highway Users Tax Account, which is essentially what most people know as the gas tax or excise gas tax. And then we have also Local Transportation Fund, which is a portion of the Transportation Development Act funds that we are allowed to use for maintenance, road maintenance purposes once our transit needs have been met. And I just want to touch a little bit on the highway users tax because that's probably something that you guys have all heard about recently. I know Supervisor Wheeler has. Essentially, this is kind of the bread and butter, the main funding that local agencies get, and right now that is rapidly declining to the tune of about 80% over the last 3 years. The reason why is because it comes from tax on gasoline, so you have more fuel-efficient cars driving around that don't require as much gas, so they don't buy as much gas, and that results in less revenue to the local agencies. I know there's a lot of movement going on at the state level and Transportation Commission as well to get some sort of fix. There's a few assembly bills, there's a few legislation that's out there. There's also the pilot road user charge program that's going on, looking at a different option of funding that. Overall, there's about a $79 billion shortfall estimated over the next decade for local roads. So given the condition of our roads now and the fact that we're going to be that much short, you can see there's going to be a significant issue. 18-cent gas tax really equates to about 6 cents when you adjust it out for inflation and the fuel efficiency in the cars. So it's really just not buying as much as what it used to.
Electric cars. And piracies. And with piracies.
Yeah.
So we spend money to get rid of people's junkers and give them the new ones, and then it's going to cost the taxpayer dollars. We use taxpayer dollars to get less.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it shows 80% over the last 3 years. I know that the efficiency has gone up, but there's also more cars on the road.
Right.
How can it have gone down by 80%? I mean, that seems like, because I know my gas bill hasn't gone down by 80%.
Yeah, but you don't drive those Pierces like he drives.
But I mean, but I'm not everybody drives those. I mean,
sorry, Rick.
4 out of the 5 year are gas guzzlers.
$600 a month.
So I just don't see how it could have gone down by 80%. Is there any way that they were able to somewhat siphon that off, or is it, what's the accounting for that to know where that gas tax is? Because I just cannot imagine that 80% of it is gone.
Yeah,
obviously you don't have that answer, but
yeah, it's interesting because I was just at a meeting a week or so ago, and Will Kempton did a presentation on this specific issue because he's really got it down to a T as far as all the very specifics of what's going on with this fund, and how and why it's going down, and all the all the details about it.
Does it seem fishy, or does it seem to pass the sniff test?
Well, I mean, there definitely is some diversion of funding, like the weight fees are going to pay debt service, so that's one thing that is happening. And really, in Will Kempton's presentation, what he tried to stress is that, for the most part, the public wouldn't have an issue with looking at, transportation funding and improving that, as long as they know exactly where it's going. And there's an issue with that, just like you're pointing out right now.
You don't keep giving your druggy cousin money when they're keep buying drugs with it. I mean, that's sorry to take it down to a very low level, but that's what it seems like it's happening.
Well, you can see that last point on the slide there. That just gives you an idea of, specific to our county of Madera, the fiscal year 16-17. So this coming fiscal year, we will have about a little over $500,000 less in gas tax revenue than what we would have, because of there's a lot of moving parts to it. It's the where they set the tax. It's the fuel efficiency. Obviously, like you mentioned, there's more cars on the road, and so that's kind of why the road user charge pilot program is looking at that and basing it on actually how much impact is being done to the roads, and how do we cover that? How do we actually get the funds to compensate that?
Are they holding some of it back? Are they paying for the administration? Or can they do that with that, or does it have to? Is it specifically earmarked just to go towards infrastructure projects?
I don't know that I have all the answers to that. I definitely, obviously it's becoming a more and more well known that we're having issues. As far as being able to keep up. I mean, as Ahmad mentioned, we have over 1,500 miles in our county, and most of those roads were built back in the 60s, so being able to just maintain those, let alone go and bring them up to a current standard, that's where you get to, $80 billion.
The only thing I believe that is true is that the infrastructure is bad.
Yeah.
And that's, so I know you don't have the answers to that, but, I mean, I think these are questions that need to continue to be asked so we know what's happening, and that we're not just giving it to an endless pit instead of filling some of our endless pits in sinkholes and whatever else may come with the infrastructure.
Yeah. Also, supervisor, with increased more fuel-efficient cars on the road, more cars on the road, there's more usage of the road with less chances of capitalize on the user tax. So more infrastructure, more cars, less possibility of collecting. But again, 80% does sound.
But they're lighter, so they do less damage, huh, Rick?
Correct. Correct.
Got to get those Michelin tires.
We just need to drive hovercrafts.
I know.
Yeah, there's a little bit of creative financing going on here.
Yeah.
And the fact is that we do know that the Caltrans has been dinged by the LAO for wasting $500 million a year on unnecessary employment, on employees that don't do really anything. And of course, they were in several scandals as a result of that. And then, of course, 62% over budget on a majority of their projects. So it's just, it's replete with waste. And until the government itself, until they begin to deal with that issue, I think taxpayers are going to be resistant to saying yes to any kind of a tax until they deal with that waste. It's terrible. That's a terrible situation. But anyway.
One other thing too is I think it's very interesting. Since the year 2000, road costs and repairs have gone up eight times since that year. And I find it very interesting that when we had the boom, that the gas price was so high, almost $5 a gallon, that most construction places weren't putting pavement in because pavement, oil, gas was so high they went to cement because it was cheaper to put cement in roadways instead of asphalt. But the things that really that the difference is the prevailing wages and CEQA. And all the things that we have to do now to put in a road and how much more cost that's added. Prevailing wages, if we didn't have prevailing wages on all of our roadways and stuff like that, we could do a heck of a lot more roads than what we're doing right now. But it's interesting that the CEQA and the new laws and the new rulings and all that stuff is cost basically for those roads to go higher. You would think right now we'd be paving like son of a guns because the gas prices and the oil prices clear down to nothing, and not nothing, but $2.50 a gallon or whatever compared to $5. That's half. So you actually, if you had the same price of what you had in material back then, you could be doing double the roads right now. It's kind of interesting.
Sir, does state or transportation, have they put together the formula to provide that tax money? Where are they at as far as the new bill as far as taxation? Where are they at? Are they still formulating that approach?
Well, my understanding is there's a couple different bills that are proposed right now, and they've been looking at them, trying to see, some of them have, different things and different ways of coming up with adequate funding. But really what it all comes down to, of course, is it's going to be probably either some sort of different tax or fee or something like that.
Well, you think registration, you register a car every 2 years, and that you have to know how much a car is driven, the fair way to pay per mile. With modern technology, you think you could find those figures.
What the state doing.
Well, no, Tom, they know. They're putting it together. There's a lot of politics involved. But the point is, with a technology, you should be able to read the mileage on that car, and even if it's every 2 years. New cars don't go, they go 5 years, I think, before you smog them. But that would be a simple way of finding the true mileage of a vehicle and pay accordingly. I don't think anybody would mind that. I know a partner over here wouldn't mind paying by the mile, right? That's a way to do it.
Supervisor, that essentially that's what the road user charge pilot program is looking at a way to collect that data and how they can figure out what the actual travel of vehicals are, and how many miles they're putting on.
That formula has to be perfected there, so it's a fair tax. Now, as you travel up and down California from San Diego all the way to Sacramento, and you go through Modesto and those areas up there, the discrepancy as far as when you build bridges, overpasses, the ones we have here are nice. But when you go through Modesto and those areas, they're elaborate. They put more money into those projects that they're building. I wonder why that is. With us, we seem to be bottom of the totem pole as far as appropriated money for our highways. Right now, we only have 2 lanes each way. Almost everybody else has 3 lanes, north and south. And our answer that we're given in Transportation Commission meetings is, the funding.
Right.
But going way back, you go through Bakersfield, they've had 6 lanes going north and south for years and years. Of course, they had a politician that's very high in the ranking up there. I think he was Speaker of the House, something like that. So there's a lot of money going into that area. But the point is, it's got to be a more fair way to do it because we seem to be the low county in the totem pole. You can see it as you travel north and south. Yes.
I know we're not state and we're not, anyway, we're not state. We can't figure this stuff out. But the other thing too is I think we should address NAFTA again. What the foreign trade that's coming up, Canada and Mexico, how they're beating the hell out of our roads, and nothing is done about it. And you can see the vehicles that they're bringing up. And before NAFTA, you basically, the trucking industry would go right to the borders, pick up the loads, and then bring it into the country. Now we have trailers that are ready to fall apart driving down our freeways, beating the hell out of our freeways, and no one seems to do anything about that. And so, I mean, there's another message for Sacramento. What do we do before we start adding this mileage tax? Because if you do the mileage tax, every salesman that puts 60,000 miles on a car, and you times that times 12, times the factory that is trying to make a cent off a box instead of a widget. I don't know.
Yeah, if you end up doing the use by mileage, you'll see every single trucking company move to Nevada, not put it on there, and then still use all of our.
It's called
roads.
NAFTA.
Yeah.
NAFTA Nevada.
NAFTA Nevada. Yeah, it's just. I mean, obviously, you guys. This isn't your.
Yeah.
We're preaching to the choir here, but.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's just. I think if we're gonna, as a informational for the public to see, this is. You know, I personally, I see this as they're creating a pretty big emergency, but we need to find out where that's really coming from. Is the emergency real? The emergency is true in that the infrastructure is terrible, but the funding is that really truly epidemic as they state.
Okay. And then the other thing, too, that's interesting is with Prop 1B sunsetting pretty soon, they better act real fast because it's going to cause a lot.
Okay, so moving on with funding programs, so we talked about federal and state. The next one is local programs, which we do have a little bit more control over. So we have, of course, Measure T, our half-cent sales tax, which was approved in 2006. And frankly, that is probably what's given us any glimpse of trying to hang on to what we can do with what we are being given, getting creative and utilizing those funds. We also have our road impact fees, based on development, which currently we aren't collecting a lot, but, as things start developing, these subdivisions and things like this, we'll be able to start collecting more funding on that and start making some improvements in various areas of the county with those funds. And then lastly, we have our road maintenance districts, which really aren't that's not really a catch-all fund because it is specific to the road maintenance district, but we do have road maintenance districts that have assessments specifically for road maintenance, similar to our water districts. They have a fee. So those are some of the local funds. So when we talk about project selection, talk about the road projects first. So one of the first key factors we look at in selecting projects is we look at our highest traffic volume routes. So routes like Avenue 12, Avenue 9, where we have the most traffic is where we have to focus. And as we just talked about, with the limited funding we have, we're trying to do our best to keep those primary routes from getting in such a state of disrepair that it's costing 2 or 3 times to what it would to replace them or reconstruct them. We also have to look at the funding source and guidelines. As I mentioned, the local assistance procedures guidelines and LAPM, those have specific criteria that we can utilize certain funding for. So, for example, CMAQ can only be air quality projects. We can't go out and do maintenance on a road or improve a road with CMAQ funds. Unless it's a dirt road, we could do that because that improves air quality, which we did do several years ago up in Valley Lake Ranchos. Those were all dirt roads, and we went in and paved a bunch of those and got them surfaced so that they're not shooting a bunch of dust in the air. The other thing that we look at, too, is that we don't always look at the worst first, and this is something that I know throughout the state has become a very important topic and subject when it comes to pavement preservation. A lot of the common reaction is to go out and find the road that's the worst and try to fix it and make it better. But what you do in that action is potentially jeopardize things, other roads that might not be as severe, but maybe needing some sort of preservation treatment to keep it and give it that extra life so that it will last another 5 years versus waiting and doing it in 5 years and then costing more and not lasting as long. So that's one of the things we have to look at. Geographic equity, we do our best to try and look at geographic equity in terms of where we do our projects. However, that very first point on the traffic volume routes is a little bit of, that doesn't always provide for full geographic equity because we do have heavier routes and heavier traveled routes in certain areas of the county. So that sometimes doesn't always play together well. And we currently do not have an active pavement management system. There was one that was started quite a few years back. It's a very costly and time-consuming process. It essentially nearly requires someone full-time to constantly be going out and evaluating the roads and inputting that data to come up with your pavement condition indexes. And to be honest with you, our roads, we all know what they look like at this point. So, until we can get some heavy work done and start making some major improvements on the roads, a pavement management system isn't really going to tell us any more than we already know about what our system looks like. As far as bridge projects, selection of those, all of our bridges that for qualifying for federal funding have to be on the National Bridge Inventory. That's a database that's kept by the federal government through Caltrans. Caltrans Structures and Maintenance Investigations. I'm sorry?
Are they? All of our bridges registered?
Yeah, 145 of our bridges are on the NBI. And I'll talk a little bit more about how they qualify for funding when we get into the other part of it. Obviously, again, the funding source guidelines, we have to look at those guidelines and what we qualify for and what we can use the funding for. And then the bridge inspection reports, those are the reports that the state does. Every 2 years, they do inspections on every bridge that we have, and they do a rating that determines what the structural or the sufficiency rating, sufficiency rating is. And based on that sufficiency rating, that is what gets us into certain categories of qualifying for various types of funding under the Highway Bridge Program. And then we also have a more recent program that started. It's actually part of the Highway Bridge Program. It's for Bridge Preventative Maintenance Plan, and what that is for looking at all of our bridges countywide and doing a maintenance evaluation to see what we can do with just the maintenance part of it. It's more of a preventative maintenance, like it mentions, to keep it from getting into a state of disrepair where it then has to be either replaced or rehabilitated. So some of the recently completed projects that we have for road projects, we had our 2015 countywide rehab, which we did with Measure T funding. That included those 3 segments there on 36 from 9 to 12, 36 from Avenue 15 to State Route 145, and also Avenue 9 west of State Route 99. So there's some before picture of Road 36. I believe that's 36 north of 15. And then you can see what it looks like now. It's much sturdier. We did a full depth reclamation process on that, which essentially we ground what was in place and utilized that as a base rather than pull it all out and haul it all off, which takes more time, money, and also actually impacts your roads worse because you're hauling all that material in and out. So we've been utilizing that process on quite a few of our roads as we do the rehabilitation projects. Countywide chip seal project, that involved 3 locations also. Up on 274, Road 200. Road 200 was a preventative maintenance project on a Phase 1 segment of Road 200 that we did about, I think it was 6 years ago? About 6 years ago, yeah, it was a Phase 1. And then we did 1 mile on Avenue 15 just outside the city limits there. So there's a picture of kind of what it looked like before with some crack sealing and stuff on it. And then, of course, afterwards it has this chip seal on it. And then We also had a shoulder paving project on Avenue 15. Actually, we had two locations, Avenue 15 from Road 29 all the way out to 41. That was a pretty long project. That was a CMAQ project, air quality, and what that was for was installing paved shoulders on the edges of the road to help prevent the dust that's kicked up by vehicles and trucks traveling. So there's some before and after pictures. You can see there's a wider paved shoulder out there. And just real quick, Supervisor Farinelli mentioned the environmental issue. This project took quite a while to get environmentally cleared just to add that 3 feet to there. In fact, we were going to add 4 feet, and we had to narrow it down to 3 feet. A lot of these projects also, we have to follow NEPA and CEQA with them because they're federal funding. So we have 2 levels of environmental that we have to meet. And I know there's some work going on to try and streamline some of that stuff. Doing work within the operational right-of-way is something that's come up on NEPA. However, CEQA, I don't think they've caught up to it yet. So there's a little bit of variation in that. So essentially, we can take a project and qualify as a categorical, exempt for NEPA, but then we still have to go through studies for CEQA because they don't recognize the same. So that's just a kind of a side note on the environmental stuff. Traffic signal, we had a traffic signal that we did in partnership with Valley Children's at the entrance there to Peck Boulevard entrance to Valley Children's. So we were able to take that intersection and get it signalized. And it seems to be working really good. I don't know that we've had any issues out there since it's been in operation. Bridge projects, 425B up in Oakhurst. You could see that was a small 2-lane wooden bridge, very, very structurally deficient, and that was replaced with a precast, pre-stressed voided slab bridge with Supervisor Rodriguez. We got to put some nice architectural features on that. But that was not paid for by federal funds, by the way.
In fact, some of the owners paid for some of that, didn't they, for the subdivision?
Yeah, we had some developer partnership on that. Road 600 bridge is one we just completed out on 600 going up towards Raymond over the Madera Canal. You can see there that was
got chewed out for.
I'm sorry?
We almost got chewed out for.
Yeah, believe it or not, this is a similar type bridge to what was done at 425B, a precast, pre-stressed voided slab. And some of you might remember we had a very, very short time window in this. Yep. That canal was empty when we started, and we found out, I think we were in Sacramento, we found out that they were going to release water, and within, I don't know, within a week, we had all the abutments poured, the contractor did everything, got everything done, and was out of that canal in time for water to come the very next day.
So was it going to be enough without a bridge for, what, a year?
Yeah. Yep. And so they were able to finish everything and then continue on finishing, getting the deck put in place and all the barrier rail stuff, and that thing is open. I think it was a 7-week project to get that thing replaced. So some of the projects we have in process that we're looking at for road projects. We have the Road 40 project from Avenue 12 to Avenue 10. That is currently getting ready to come to award. You have the Avenue 12 and State Route 41 intersection, which is a developer project. And then we're currently working on the electric vehicle charging stations out here in the parking structure. And then design-wise, we have several other projects that we're working on, getting ready for taking out to bid and advertising. So we hope to get those out as quick as possible and get those into construction. One project I did want to point out, this road rehabilitation on Avenue 26. That is a federal land access project, which is through federal lands. It's not actually through FHWA, which most of our funding is through them. And that project we applied for and were able to get, I think about a year and a half ago. And that's a good stretch of road. That's basically going all the way out from Chowchilla all the way out to Eastman Lake.
That road is horrible.
Yes, it is. I agree with you on that one. So that'll be a good project. Once again, I think right now we don't have anything to do with the design on that. That is all being done at the federal level.
Wow.
So
when do you think that'll occur?
Last we heard from them, they were going to be starting design, and they're looking to have it in construction by 2019 is where the funding was scheduled. So, so a few more projects, and these are projects that are actually just programmed for funding. We haven't started design on them yet, but they are programmed and do have funding. Most all of them are CMAQ funds. And then we have a few in Measure T that we're looking at getting started on as well.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
6 and 12 and a half? Thank you.
Did you have a question about one of those?
No.
Okay.
So I appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, that's probably going to be in one of our rehab projects. And then bridge projects, like I mentioned, we just finished Road 600 Bridge, and we have a couple more that are currently in design. We don't have any in construction right now. We have a couple more that are in design. They're Road 23, Avenue 16 and a half, one out on Road 210, and then Road 5 and a half, which is up on the Madera-Merced County line, currently closed. I know Supervisor Rogers knows about that.
I do. I hear about it every week from Tim.
Yeah. And we're in the process of getting that design done. I'm sorry?
Road 200 is not on there.
Road 200.
Bridge. The crooked bridge.
Oh, yeah. I apologize. That is on there. That's on Measure T.
Measure T, on the one right before.
So
Yeah.
the bridge at 5 and a half is in design.
Yeah, we just got authorization for the funding for the design to move forward with it. So there's a process we have to go through with that funding, that we have to get authorization every step of the way. So that obviously doesn't make things go very fast. But we did get approval, so we're moving forward on design with that. So traffic engineering a little bit. I wanted to talk just very briefly about some of the stuff. Stop signs, common requests we get from the public to install a stop sign. Number one reason for installing a stop sign from the public is because cars are speeding through the neighborhood. We have specific criteria that we have to follow when we're looking at installation of stop signs out of the vehicle code, and then also the analysis that we have to do through, which is outlined in the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. In the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the number one thing it says is that stop signs are not for controlling speed. And that's something that I understand, it seems like they are, but in reality, they are specifically to assign right of way at an intersection, so that if you have conflicting movements, you're taking care of that. So that's a common request that we get, and we have to explain that quite often, that a stop sign is not designed to do that. And we can look at other ways, but it's definitely not one of the ways to do it, because it would create an issue for us as a county with liability. As far as speed zones, again, one of the big common things that we get about speeds and in various areas. And so, again, we have the vehicle code sections that we follow there in determining speed zones. We have the engineering and traffic surveys that we have to do in accordance with California METCD to establish those speed zones, so that they're legally established speed zones and can be enforced by the CHP. If a speed zone or a speed sign is put up and it is not properly warranted or studied, then it's not enforceable. And so CHP will not go out, they will not enforce it, they won't ticket people, and it becomes a liability for the county as well.
Darrell, I think I talked to you about 13 and 29. See the Chavez intersection there?
Mm-hmm.
during harvest season, that is a very, very dangerous intersection there. The trucks just barrel through there, and the parents are very concerned about that intersection there. I know that lights would be very, very expensive. It would have to be a cooperation between the school and the county, but as an alternative maybe, and I think you were against it when I mentioned it to you, maybe the blinking stop lights, something to bring attention to the truck. These are truck drivers I'm talking about. That they travel very, very fast through that 29. And you got those kids crossing that, crossing 29 and 13 by the bunches, and somebody's going to get killed one of these days.
Okay.
Okay. And I just want, on the Road 36 and 12 and a half, because 12 and a half is only, it kind of runs right into, it doesn't go all the way through. It's not a four-way stop. Do you mean Ruth Avenue? Because Ruth Avenue goes and then it turns into 12 and a half. Is that
Right. Yeah. So it's that intersection. I know it's not 12 and a half all the way across.
Because that's where you go to the middle school and the Webster.
Webster to the right. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted.
Yeah. It's that intersection. I know we call it out as 12 and a half,
Yeah,
but it's 12 and a half on the west side and Ruth on
Ruth's on the
the
other.
east
Yeah.
side.
Yeah,
So
I just wanted to make sure because there's also
Yeah.
another 12 and a half that's up a little bit.
yeah, not the old 12 and a half.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, the new
Because I
alignment.
was like, that's.
Yeah, in fact, I think when that project was done with the school, there was actually I believe, some preliminary infrastructure that was put in for the future signal because their traffic study talked about the need or the warrant for a signal further on down the road once the full build out of the, I don't know if it's still happening, the new elementary school out there, but there was, so yeah, that's the intersection we're talking about.
Okay, perfect. And then just to put on the radar, and the other one that comes in off of 12 at 36 and a half, where people are turning right to go, or left to go to Webster in the mornings. A lot of times that creates quite a pinch. It could be a good place for a light, not a stop sign like everybody wants me to have there. But a stoplight that allows for traffic and mitigate that congestion. So it'd be Avenue 12 and Road 36 and a half.
Okay.
We will look at that one.
Where the pedestrian undercrossing is?
Yeah, on the, when a bridge goes into design, is the expectation that that is funded now, that the bridge is funded and it's going to be built? And how long is that going to, approximately, just how long does that
5
take
years
from
minimum.
that point?
Yeah, well,
like
I'm going to give you the answer. It depends because it really depends on lots of things. Environmental. It depends on the size of the bridge. It depends on the type of the bridge.
It's a small bridge. I'm talking about 5.5.
Yeah, 5.5. 5.5 probably won't take a whole lot of time. And we've already met with local assistants and done a field review on that to get some ideas. The key is when using the HBP funding, we have to, every step of the way, we have to work through local assistance at Caltrans. They have to approve our funding and say, okay, now you can proceed with this phase. They have to do a field review and look at what we're proposing to do. They can be, yeah. So
Can we push them at all? I mean,
honestly, I think we push them as hard as we
that bridge
can.
has been out for 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that one definitely is on the top of the list. We're moving forward as quick as we can. Like I said, I think we just got our authorization to design like within a matter of a week or so ago. So we're moving forward on as quick as we can.
Any more from the board? Bring it to the public? Dale?
Yeah, a comment on a project.
Your name, address.
Dale Drozen, Madera County resident. Avenue 12 and where the frontage road, Highway 41 frontage road comes in, since the construction started in there, it gets a little more confusing. And we're getting more people running that stop sign at night. They're just not seeing it. Could you put one of those stop signs up with the flashing LEDs? There's already a stop sign there. You just have to upgrade it to one with the flashing LEDs on it.
So are you talking about Business 41?
Business 41 where it runs into 12.
Yeah.
There's all the construction, people are looking at that, and they
Mhm.
don't see that stop sign, and they wind up in the orchard across the street.
Yeah, so that's actually closed right now. They're realigning the Business 41 to move further to the west, and that will have a traffic signal on it when it's done. So that should probably make things better there at that intersection.
It should. And the other thing, this 80% reduction is still rattling around in my head because this new system they're trying to come up with where they charge you by the mile, they're going to try and get it back up so that 80% makes it very dangerous. You made a comment about how much Madera County lost last year. I think it was $500,000. How much did we get?
I believe our estimated amount for the 16-17 fiscal year was about 4.1 million. So we would have gotten close, $500,000 more than that.
Okay.
So that's not 80% less.
Yeah, so that's in 1 year, that's a 10% reduction?
Just about, wouldn't that?
Somewhere around there, 10,
20.
15%. I just don't see how in 3 years we come up with an 80% reduction.
Well, yeah, and
80% statewide, I think.
yes, that's statewide. So
It should trickle down to, if they're getting 80% less, we're going to get at least 80% less.
We were getting 6 million 4 or 5 years ago, I believe.
yeah,
Now
they're
we're down to 4 something.
Yeah.
It's still not
Each year's
80%.
been down 80%.
It's still not 80%.
It concerns me because that's the figure they're going to be using to how much they want to collect extra using this new system. I
Yeah.
saw Tom was talking about that, and I signed up for that program. And so far, the only thing I've gotten is they want to use my vehicles to see how many miles I drive and how much I pay.
There'll be more by the time July gets here when they start doing it. They keep sending updates, so.
Will we have input on it? And
Yep, totally.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for signing up.
Yep. Anybody else from the public? No, see none? This is just informational and.
I got two
Yeah.
questions.
Okay, go ahead.
On page 36 and 46, you had on there dollars for bicycle lanes and stuff. You guys met with the highway patrolman stuff the other day for 274 bicycle lane. Somebody did, I remember who it was. They were proposing to put that up, and they had a grant through the highway patrol. At our last airborne meeting 2 weeks ago, they've got, I think it's like $2.5 million just for our district for bicycle paths and stuff. And if we go for that grant to do that, I'd like to try to put some of this money in there too, so we could get a better deal on it, maybe if we could. And for that walking path in North Fork, wasn't that going to be for bicycles too? The one that crosses the bridge, is that the one that was on page 46?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That'll be a pedestrian path that will go across the creek there.
Right.
And
For bikes too, or? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if we don't have enough money, the Air Board's got that extra money, and I think each project could be up to $150,000, so.
So for the benefit of the rest of the board and Monte Pistaresi at home is that what we're talking about here is the Highway Patrol approached us about improving a lot of the folks who walk near Bass Lake and walk in the traffic about improving the pedestrian safety there. We met with them last month. And we're meeting again tomorrow morning, actually 10 a.m. up in Oakhurst. Jared and I will be meeting there. Mr. Trieber will be there. So this is a really wonderful initiative that was started by safety concerns from the Highway Patrol. So we love that information about that. If you could get us forward a copy of it to Jared and I, but get us that info. We'll be meeting with Sergeant Jackson again tomorrow morning in Oakhurst for our second part of this. What we're looking at now is right away, how much road we actually have up there. So just want to appreciate your office for supporting that, but this was a great thing led by the Highway Patrol. Yes.
What happened, just a little quick update, the highway patrolman come around the turn right there between the Pines and North Fork, and there was a dump truck, big truck, and he was across the yellow line. So he said, I'd turn on my lights out and chase him down. I got around there, and there was 3 bikes out in the middle of his lane. And the reason he was across the line because he would have hit either the highway patrolman or 3 bicycles. So it really ticked him off, so they started investigating. They found these grants that was available, so they... Because on 274, there's about this much on the white line. On the
Well, I think
backside.
they should put mileage meters on bicycles too.
I agree. I'd like to have some kind of flashing light so to stay out of the stupid roads when I got to swerve and miss them. Man, I tell you, they're dangerous.
I was going to point out that at the current rate of 4.1 million received, we can pave approximately 22 miles if it was $180,000 a mile. That's not that's not completely tearing the road up for that price. And that would take us between 70 and 100 years to completely pave the county.
Yep, that's all.
Wah, wah, wah. Okay. We are in.
Well, thank you so much, and very, very good and factual, and what we have going forward.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the presentation. It brings us up to date on what's going on, and I think it really does. And we asked for that, and you guys delivered. So
We have one more for you.
Okay.
Now we're going to go to the maintenance and operations side of the road
Number two.
with a quick and nice presentation by Mr. Brad Phillips.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Board. Brad Phillips. And I can make it very quick. It just depends on how quick I push this button here. Well, maybe not so quick.
There's a heck of a crew, a picture of the crew. In my,
All right, you guys get to see it on big screen. I got to put my bifocals on to see this little bitty picture here and try to explain it real quick, so bear with me. Basically, I'm here and I'm proud to talk about the Maintenance Operation Division. Those are kind of your first line guys that often the public sees, you guys see, and everything else. Just wanted to quickly introduce the crews and their districts. In District 1, this course covers the west side, down on the southern end of the county. This is our District 2 crew up in Chowchilla area. Our District 3 crew over on the east side of Madera and the Flats. And this is our District 4 crew up in Raymond. And of course, our District 5 crew up in North Fork. Basically, all these crews are assigned daily maintenance activities, as some of these pictures will show you. And they include shoulder work, digging out roads for base repair, weed eating, weed abatement, patching. In the winter months, they'll respond to, of course, snows, downed trees. The top right picture is showing them a picture of us cleaning up one of the basins in the valley.
Cold spring, washed out.
Yeah. The bottom right pictures was a new experimental machine we tried for very large cracks. So we went ahead and tried that out for a while. Again, some more maintenance items here. Weed abatement, shoulder work. The bottom left picture shows us lining pipes. That's one of the new things that we've come up with. Instead of tearing up the road, tearing out pipes, we put a liner in that's built out of a polymer that actually flows more than the original pipe. And then we go ahead and concrete off the ends, and away we go with it. So that improves time, and plus we can do it without closing the road.
And dollars.
Exactly. Again, just some more maintenance activity going on. Of course, the fellow in the bottom right is very proud of his patching technique. Kind of don't know whether to laugh or cry at that picture, but we also have some crews that are assigned countywide. And the first one is our District 6 construction and bridge crew. Some of the activities you see these fellows perform include redecking bridges and working on the substructure of them. We kind of did an interesting thing out on Avenue 10 is we actually replaced the bridge out there. And if you take a look at that, those are some large box culverts we placed in there. The crews went ahead and they've been taught on how to build very high head walls, and turned out to be a very beautiful project. They'll be here long after we're all gone, I think. The construction crew is also in charge of paving. One of my favorite pictures is the top left one. That was day one with our brand new paver. If you notice there's a bunch of asphalt in front of the machine, that's not the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be behind it. But the crew continued to learn. We brought in Caterpillar Training Institute. All of our guys on the paving crew have been certified. I'll put this paving crew against any contractor agency in the state. They're that good. The This last picture kind of sums it up. This was up in Tom's neck of the woods. The picture on the left doesn't do justice on how close the trucks were passing the paver in that kind of turn. Plus, we still had traffic to deal with. The road turned out to be a phenomenal project, and we're very proud of this crew. Also, in one of my countywide crews is a heavy repair shop. Those folks are in charge of taking care of everything from motor transmission, hydraulic rebuilds, anything that has to do with our equipment, they handle for us. We also have a parts department, as you can see in the bottom left corner. We also reach out and do some work for the ag department and some of the other county departments that have large vehicles that the central garage can't deal with for smog and brakes and that kind of thing. Our District 8 crew is basically a small crew. They're the ones that are our licensed herbicide applicators for weed abatement. They also do a lot of mowing and stuff like that. They're also the guys I call out to handle graffiti and handle trash countywide. My District 10 crew is our paint and striping crew. Of course, those folks go ahead and you'll see them out in the truck redoing all the striping, signage, everything else. And I know that I've had to work with Tom, and I think I got an answer for you, Tom, in the bottom right corner for that fork in the roadside you've been after.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Put a fork there.
Some of the agencies.
I requested something, he done it, see, that's really.
Is it a real pork?
Yeah, let me go. Did you see that supervisor at the bottom right? It's a wonder one of the crew ain't out there eating with it. But anyway, some of the agencies we do work with, and we work with a lot, include Caltrans, Cal OES, Cal Fire, CHP, FEMA, County of Fresno, County of Merced, and the U.S. Forest Service. Some of the other departments and agencies that roads assist include, as part of the county, flood control, animal control, special districts. We work with CAL FIRE, FEMA, PG&E, Amtrak, BNSF, Southern Pacific, all the local schools and local irrigation districts. Some of the innovations we've been able to come up with is, can you see it? The top left one was, and the center one was some of that pipelining replacement. We started to use ATVs for fire protection when we do mowing inside of the channels. The road on the bottom left is actually over in, where is that, at MD 22, I believe, and they didn't have enough money for paving, so what we did is we actually ground it up and had a contractor come in and put a double chip down. We were able to do it about 50,000 a mile. So we're kind of looking at that for some of the other roads. So far, it's been down a year and a half and holding up very well. Of course, the bottom right picture is us working in some of the channels, helping with the flood control issue.
Is that a mower?
Yeah, that's actually a mower, and I couldn't find my darn excavator. We actually have an excavator with a mower head on it, too. We own the mower head and rent the excavator, and we put 2 of these skid steers with mowers and 1 excavator with a mower head. So we move along pretty good there. As I said at the beginning, a lot of times we're the first face the public sees. A lot of times that happens for emergencies, too, the flooding and stuff of that sort. Some of the current emergencies we're looking at, of course, is the tree mortality issue up in the hills. We have a lot of trees that are going to be coming down on our right-of-way. We're working with CAL FIRE, U.S. Forest Service, Supervisor Wheeler's office, and we will be renting an excavator with a grapple there, the right top picture, to help start moving those logs out of our road right-of-way once they're dropped. With that, I'm open to any questions you folks may have.
Well, I just wanted to compliment them, especially on their paving machine and stuff they've been doing now. And we've saved the county, I mean, probably millions of dollars, the paving they've done since we bought that machine. And I want to thank you and our staff that's running that thing, because they do a heck of a job now. That first picture, probably when they was first learning, I can see it's probably messed up, but all these jobs that I've seen that they've done now are excellent. I mean, and the people up there compliment our road department, what they've been doing. So we haven't done any kind of thing like that for years on our roads.
Yeah.
So thank you, staff. That's all I can tell you.
Thank you. Okay.
Even with the fork in the road.
We're going to just continue, if you need to take a break, take a break. And,
5-minute break?
We'll just continue, okay? Is that okay?
Yeah.
We'll just continue as a need. You have
So
to
if I
take a
go
break.
pee, I can just go pee?
Okay, yep. Just go.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay, how's that sound? Workshop landfill. Yeah. No, I said, anybody that wants to take a break, take a break. No, let's continue the meeting. Anybody that needs to go to the restroom, just
Unless
go.
you need to go.
Yeah, just unless you need to go.
Okay, so we'll continue with our third presentation. Okay. And this will be regarding our solid waste for the county. Before I start, let me just recognize a few people here in the audience. But first, we have from Red Rock. Anybody here from Red Rock?
Yeah, they're coming in right now.
Yes, we should be.
Taking a 5-minute break. Yeah. They wouldn't take a 5-minute without a 5-minute.
Okay, we'll give him a.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So from Red Rock here, as we see enter the room, is Mr. Richard Caglia and Alan Davis, representing Red Rock, which is the Caglia Environmental Group. Also from Imatco, we have Ashley Smith back there and Shab Gunderman. Yes. From Tetra Tech BAS, we have Mr. Gus Andreas, the president of the Methane Gas Group. And he's the director of our landfill gas system operations, maintenance, and expansion. We also have Mr. Caleb Moore. He's with Tetra Tech BAS as well. And he's the chief engineer for the solid waste division. He's the project manager for the solid waste activities, groundwater monitoring, and the development of the master plan. And also we have Ms. Christine Abragast. She's the president of the solid waste division for Tetra Tech BAS.
President, wow.
Yeah. Also, we have, of course, our LEA, Dexter Marr. We all know Mr. Marr, right? And from staff, we have our staff landfill engineer, Mr. Lorenzo Nadura, a wealth of information and historical data. Also, last and not least, I don't know if I forgot anybody else. Yeah, of course, we have the Chief of Development Services, Mr. Norm Allender. And also we have Nicole.
Desmond.
Nicole is also here. Sorry for the...
To keep your dollars in straight.
Correct. And she was very, thankfully, tracked our solid waste budget. Of
And
course,
Melissa De Silva, since you mentioned
Melissa.
every single other person over there.
Yeah, well, of course, Ms. Melissa De Silva, representing...
with Brett.
Yeah, District 1. Supervisor, District 1. And again, and of course, last but not least, Mr. John Carlton here, our solid waste consultant from GBB. And Mr. John will lead this workshop through a brief presentation, and he will talk about, some introductions and purpose of this workshop, backgrounds and status, financial challenges, options to address the challenges, and then next steps. So with that, I'll leave it to you, Mr. Carlton.
All right, Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you for inviting me to come out and speak to you today. I don't know if there's a way to pull up the presentation on the screen.
She's coming. Next presentation. You can walk, we ain't that big a hurry.
Never.
There it is.
All right. So this is an outline, and Ahmad did sort of tell you the different aspects of the workshop. First we're going to talk about why we're here and sort of try to scope out what the problem is, if you will, or the problem statement. Provide a little bit of background and history to how we got to where we are. Talk a little bit about the magnitude of the challenge that we're facing at this point. and then talk about some options on how to address the challenges. And obviously, we're here to listen to feedback from you. We're not here to give any type of, firm recommendations, but more to talk about options and see what type of policy decisions you're interested in. So actually, one entity that's not on here, this is your, I guess, group of your team that helps implement the solid waste program in Madera County. MADCO should be on here. We were talking about a landfill challenge, but because MADCO does bring the waste to the landfill, it does pay a landfill tipping fee, I think they are deserve to be included in here as part of any type of solution.
I guess you guys ain't nothing up here in the mountains.
But the rest of us, obviously the county is the owner and supervisor of the landfill. Red Rock is the operator of the landfill and also the Valley franchise operator. GVB as a advisor to you on solid waste issues, and Tetra Tech BAS, who is your current engineers for the landfill, providing capital and O&M services. So I'm sure that there's a longer history than what I've laid out here, but I wanted to sort of go back to at least a period that I'm familiar with. GVB was hired in 2012 to come and help to set, I guess, the current system into motion. Prior to that, in 2011, Madera Disposal Services, Inc., or MDSI, was your operator of the landfill. There was also a grand jury investigation that took place as to, if the contract with Madera Disposal Services was proper, was extended, had proper oversight, et cetera. And that sort of kicked off a desire to look at getting a new operator in place. So GBB, working with the county, came up with, I guess, a procurement process for both the operator of the landfill as well as the Valley franchise at that point in time. The Mountain franchise was later. That contract extended a little bit further. And in 2012, through a competitive process, Red Rock Environmental was selected to operate the landfill. They have a contract. It's an operator contract. They're not responsible for delivery of waste, except that one of the things we looked at from the standpoint of operators was their ability to provide revenue to the landfill. And at that time, you were looking at around 400 tons a day of waste. Very difficult to make a landfill operate at that rate. And Red Rock was able to, through their CARTS operation in Fresno, agreed to provide up to 200 tons a day, or approximately 200 tons a day of additional waste to the landfill. So they are the operator. They're also, under that same contract, have an obligation to deliver 200 tons a day of waste and pay a disposal fee for that. So that does provide revenue to the county. And there's, various parameters on their operation. And there's a fee that's paid to Red Rock per ton. It's a sliding scale, so the more waste that comes into the landfill, the cheaper the unit price is. Because, for the same amount of equipment, they can operate under a variety of ranges. They have to have the same number of people, generally, same number of equipment. So as the tons go up, their operating costs come down. So they're operating right now at around, I'm guessing, around $12, $13 per ton operating costs. I'm going to say that's in the ballpark. However, because MDSI operated the landfill for some time and did not keep up with the capital piece of it, there was a big need for capital improvements. And in 2013, I believe, was when the county went out for a competitive process to hire a engineering firm to help look at the capital needs, to do improvements, and Tetra Tech BAS was hired for that process. Also, on the timeline is you entered into a litigation with MDSI over the claims, and I think there was cross claims, and not a fun picture to go through, but it was something that was what was recommended, and the county went forward. After about a year, it became pretty evident there was quite a bit of a need to do improvements to the landfill, both on the landfill gas side. And I'll, at some point, if you want, we can open it up to discussions. I know about 2 years ago or so, there was a pretty good presentation to the Board of Supervisors on the capital improvements that were done, focusing mostly on landfill gas. But there's other improvements that are needed too, from a groundwater protection standpoint. However, the gas system has been one of the key things through a new flare system, upgraded wells, perimeter piping, et cetera, new blower flare, to make sure that the gases are not leaving the sites, that they are controlled. And I know that the Board of Supervisors has been interested in potentially improving the gas system so you can maybe, cash some of that money in. That gas has value at the right conditions. But you spent quite a bit of money. I think at least $2.5 million around in 2014 to make these improvements. This caused your fund balance in your liner funds to become depleted pretty quickly. In 2015, the county ended up doing a $1.5 million loan, I guess a flow loan is what you call it, cash flow loan, was budgeted for. I think that to date, $400,000 has actually been paid out of that, but by the end of the year, I understand that you'll be up to about $1.3 million, roughly. 1.4 million, 1.3 million. So you're going to use a lot of that money, and that's putting, you in the red. The understanding is that money will be paid back from the operation, but currently the operation doesn't support that. And then I guess bringing us to somewhat current, we still have a lot of capital. I didn't put everything on this timeline, but you did settle the lawsuit with MDSI, and unfortunately it was a negative for you in the end for about to the tune of $1 million, which tapped that liner fund just that much more. So all of this has sort of put you in a certain picture of landfill operations that has created an operating deficit. And
just to clarify,
no, the $1 million was attorney fees.
Gee, crime me. They screwed
right,
us.
It was actually I think it was $1.3 million and $300,000 came back to the county. So, so this sort of summarized some of these things that are part of the current challenges to you. You have right now about $181,000 in your liner fund. So that is your operating fund balance.
Before we go any further, I wanted to point out something real fast. Even though we lost $1 million, I want to say we saved $1 million every year since we took care of that situation.
Yeah, I agree. But
there's a big difference.
If we would have done that,
I want to point that out. If we hadn't have done it, we'd have been even more in the hole.
Right. If we would have done it 10 years earlier, like we thought, like we tried to do, but nobody would do it. So.
And what the initial suit against us was for, it looked like, but that was a win ultimately.
It was a win ultimately, but because it was costing us $950,000, our citizens, a year that they were stealing from us. So.
And the liability that if we would have kept that going and gone to trial, if it was $1 million before trial, I think what it would have been.
Chairman, members of the board, yeah, we had.
Just on there.
Just because of the terms of the settlement, I think we want to be a bit more careful.
Yeah. I just wanted to point that out, though. It needed to be said.
Right. Fair enough. And I'm not putting.
Moving on.
Yeah. Fair enough. Moving on. So you have $200,000 in the bank, but you've got a $1.3 million, liability that's going to hit, and so $900,000. Actually, $400,000 has been paid. You have another $900,000 cash flow loan that needs to actually. You authorized $1.5 million. You only paid $400,000. So another $900,000 needs to be borrowed by the end of this fiscal year. Is what the projections are.
If I may, the $400,000 cash flow that was borrowed from the road mitigation fund, it is due to be paid by June 30th, 2017. It has not been paid yet.
Right,
so
that's correct.
Yeah, so that's part of the $1.3 million shortage is to pay back the $400,000 for the road mitigation fund.
You're currently operating a the solid waste department is currently operating around $4.5 to $5.5 million budget a year. And, depending on the amount of operating expenses and revenues, it doesn't cover your capital needs. Maybe some does, but it does not cover your current capital. So really, we're looking at, if you didn't have capital, you'd have probably no problem. But, unfortunately, landfills are construction projects. They are environmental facilities. They require, obviously, careful infrastructure to maintain the environmental integrity of the facility, the gases, the leachate, groundwater protection. All these things have got to be part of it. So there's additional funds that are needed. Tetra Tech BAS was kind enough to help me by sort of charting out, this is a potential for capital expenditures, and I think these may be slightly overstated from what I've heard today, but and these are also estimates. They could be higher, they could be lower. A lot of it depends on what happens with the landfill in terms of its operation and how things hold up, if you will, as things break, pipes break, things like that. They need to be repaired. Yes.
I want to point out too that the repairs made to the landfill were not optional repairs. We cannot afford an explosion due to migrating gas. We cannot afford fires. We cannot afford
bad air,
contamination of external wells. So this wasn't an optional thing. This was a prudent management decision to move forward with these construction repairs.
But isn't part of in these costs though is to create the infrastructure needed to sell the gas? Right?
Yes, that is correct.
So this really isn't a bare bones what it costs to run the landfill. Is that correct?
That is just the capital. That's capital and O&M above and beyond. So the way to do this, I wrote this, is beyond your county staff costs as well as your current landfill operations costs. And you have other costs too. You pay for paleontologists. You pay for, the county reimburses its staffing times, things like that. So there are those costs that are built into this. These are more above and beyond O&M. That's beyond the landfill operation, which is running the equipment to compact the waste, place compact, place cover, et cetera. So this is not your all-in. This is just what we think might be in trouble of being funded potentially. That's where I'm throwing this out.
And this is all the safety issues that Supervisor Rogers said. Is there?
Oh, you took it off.
Yeah, my name was there.
No, I mean, he had it on there too.
Oh, okay. So this would be. Where was I going with that? So is this what he was saying about making sure that it's safe? Is there a cost within that, or is this above and beyond even that too?
I'll defer somewhat to Tetra Tech on that as to whether or not this is
wants versus needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I may,
what's our wants, what's our needs?
To set Mr. Andrios up, what these costs are for us to operate the landfill without any need for capital or any unforeseen circumstances, we're good. But the need for capital improvement is a necessity. The more we expand the gas, the more wells we need. The more and compliance issues are also going to force us to do some more capital work. So that's, and in this scenario where John just presented, it includes the probability of trying to the gas collection and doing gas to energy system. This includes, for example, horizontal wells construction and monitoring. That could be taken out, which will take about 120 to 200.
Well, we can't take it out because eventually got to be done
a year. But then we can do the gas to energy. So and with this, Mr. Andrias, I don't know if you have any input in this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, yes, Ahmad, you pretty much covered it. But I wanted to add to your comments, Supervisor. It's not only for safety measures, the upgrades and the capital improvement that were done, they're actually requirements by many state and federal laws because your existing or old system was missing these components. And I give you a quick example. Area 2 of the landfill did not have a single gas collection well at the time, and yet had trash well over 2 years in place. As far as the dollars or the costs that are there that Mr. Carlton presented, they include the safety measures, they include the components that will be required by the state and federal regulations and local regulations, and they also include the infrastructure, assuming a project will be done with the landfill gas to energy or a landfill, so you can sell the gas.
Right.
Now, they also do have in them a component for non-routine contingency of some sort in case something goes wrong, but it's limited to a certain amount. I will defer to Mr. Carlton to determine that. And a lot of these costs could be taken out if you decide to have the landfill operate to be in compliance, regulatory compliance, and to operate in a safe manner. And at this point, I think a study to determine the value of your gas and the technology, what to do with the gas, because there could be many options, whether to make electricity or steam or CNG, compressed natural gas, to be used in vehicular use. I recommend that a study of such nature should be done because the amount of gas that we currently have since the project, well, since we became your consultant, is about quadruple the amount that we had when we took it over. A lot of this gas was at the site and was not being collected. And then we can determine what is the best technology and the best use depending on your market area, so we can get you the best dollar for the amount of gas you have.
I'd like to also...
Derek, do you have a question?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll reserve some comments for later. I had some questions along the same lines as
I wanted to point out, too, that the responsibility for this area that we're talking about is ours. It belongs to the county, not to Red Rock. And I point that out simply because the public needs to understand that. They need to know that we have the obligation to, for the regulatory aspects of the upkeep of the landfill and for its ongoing maintenance and all of that. And that is our problem in our situation. So we're not making up for their shortcomings. They're doing a great job out there. And I've never seen the landfill look so good. I mean, even when you drive by it, it looks great. And there's just no odor, and it's just fantastic. So
that's correct.
Yeah.
We can always come back to anything that you'd like. So, we were asked as your solid waste consultant to, try to come up with some ideas on how to resolve this apparent financial gap that exists between your current operations and your current needs. And really, it's a question of either bringing in more money or spending less money. That's pretty much on the nutshell is, what it is. So in terms of bringing in more money, I wanted to, give you a couple ideas. We're not here with any specific recommendation, more to ideas. As policymakers, you can think about, and I can try to give you some guidelines as to what some of these things may be. So the revenues that come into the landfill are primarily tipping fees. They come through either direct, people bring in their waste directly to the landfill, your customers. They come through your two cities, Chowchilla and Madeira, through their contracts. And they come through your two franchise haulers that collect from the rest of the unincorporated areas. And there are prices in all of those areas. On your landfill costs, I think you're around $46 a ton for the general public when they come in. For Madeira and Chowchilla, it's probably in the low 20s, roughly, around $22 a ton. I believe in your there's a component to the price that your franchise haulers pay to you as a disposal fee for that, and that's around low 30s. I guess like around $30 a ton was what was in the contract. It may have gone up a little bit by inflation. So you can increase those rates. And, but there's only, some of those rates are currently under contracts. The city of Chowchilla has a 5-year contract with it that was entered into a couple of years ago. I'm not sure about the city of Madeira, Mid-Valley's contract is. Okay, so there's a few years left in, okay, so there's an opportunity to some of these contracts to change it. Where you do have the opportunity with a captive customer base is through either your local fees, which are not going to be much, the people who come in directly and tip, and it's your franchise haulers. So your franchise customers currently have a rate that's embedded in there, and let's just say that rate is $30 a ton, and they're charging the homeowner, well, let's just throw out $25 per household per month. That could be plus or minus. It's in the ballpark.
Contract with Red Rock?
I think it's about 3
years.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really neat that we actually lowered the rate from what it was before.
Oh, substantially.
It substantially lowered it from $35 a ton down to $23, I believe, was at the time. And then and we, in addition to that, were able to receive a franchise fee of $1 million a year. So, big difference. Public needs to understand that. They need to know it.
That's true.
Not many organizations reduced their rates.
But now we're upside down by the tune of $1.3 million a year.
Right. So when you did, just a little bit of history because I was here.
Yeah.
When we did cut the rates that low, it did not allow for much capital. We kind of knew it was going to be tight on capital, and I think we did not know at that time.
We also had a surplus in our liner fund at that point. We were looking at refunding.
Right.
And then we used it, for these purposes, which was a wise purpose.
Right.
But we're at that point now with the regulation and the safety involved here that we need to do something.
Right.
I think it was all done very well up to this point, and I can't see any fault with anything that we've done. The upside downness of the situation is due to continued maintenance that's going to have to occur.
Right.
What are other landfills in the area? What are they charging per ton?
They're around the same. They're around $20-some bucks a ton, especially your closest one, which is American Avenue in 1850 down in Fresno. So
I mean, raising rates just because we need it to the free market. They don't care if we need it.
Well, that's true. So what I want to suggest to you is that your franchise haulers are not free market.
Mm-hmm.
They are obligated under their franchise agreements to come to the landfill.
Right.
That's around, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Are you aware of any landfills that are profitable?
Oh, yeah. Those people wouldn't be.
What are they doing different than we are?
They have much bigger sizes. For the most part.
Okay.
At 600 tons a day, which is what you're operating in, it's tough. You're marginal. I don't think you would find, in a private sector environment, you're not going to find too many landfills that are going to operate in this tonnage range.
Economy of scale is
I mean, you're in a rural area. You've got competitive landfills in the area too. So, you're in a bit of a tough spot from that standpoint.
So should we be in the landfill business in that case? I mean, if the private sector runs it so much better, and we're running it poorly?
We're not running it poorly. I don't think we're doing that. I think we're doing it very efficiently compared to what we used to.
Yeah.
But
we're
the economy of scale, like Dave said, is the problem.
So I'll tell you that the challenges that you're looking at are the same challenges that a private sector would look at, and they may have the ability to attract more waste to the landfill. They may have the ability to do things a little differently than the county does.
John, what would we be if we didn't have that extra 200 ton that they bring in per day?
You'd be in a much more difficult situation.
That's how much more we'd be in
for
trouble.
sure.
That's the reason we agreed to do that when we made the deal with Red Rock.
Oh, no,
I really screwed.
Yeah.
Literally.
So you do have some abilities, though, that are not subject to free market, which is your franchise customers. And I'm trying to give you a sense for what you can do within your current guidelines. Right now you can't really raise Chowchilla and Madeira. You may be able to negotiate, but they're subject to free market. So they could run down to Fresno if you want. You're not going to get a whole lot more out of Madeira, in my opinion. You can pass along this disposal fee to your current customers. The current franchise agreement anticipated that you may want to do that
Mandatory.
at some point. Well, no, that's a separate issue. We will get there. But the franchise agreements basically allows the county to set that disposal fee. When you originally set it up, it was $30 a ton, as what the contractor pays the county and passes that cost through in their competitive pricing to the homeowners. And what it says in that agreement is that for every 1% you raise your tipping fees, the contractor's rate to the homeowner goes up by 15% of 1%, so 0.15. So to give you a sense, if you went from $30 to $35 a ton to the customer or to Red Rock and Amadco, that would change their tipping, their pricing to their homeowner less than $1 per household, about 60 cents. So let's say you say and you want to know, and so how much money would that raise as $5? Well, except that there's a $12, there's the operating cost to that. So I think it comes out to a couple $100,000 a year that you could raise through raising, say, $5. You could get up to a couple $100,000 because there is, for every, it's not, but it's one thing is, I want to say that there's not a silver bullet to any of these discussions. I'm going to suggest to you that there may be a combination of things you have to look at. You could raise it $10. That would raise the homeowner's price by $120, or something around that nature. Is that acceptable? I mean, you kind of have to ask yourselves what that pricing moves along to the customer, and is that accessible? $10, could raise it, $500,000, $600,000 a year. You could raise in additional funds.
If we raise it that much, can they make any money?
Oh, it's a pass-through. It's a pass-through cost.
Yeah.
They have it in the agreement with your franchise rates. They pass along that cost through a formula that changes their rates to their customers.
Yeah, the ratepayer bears it.
The ratepayer pays it. But it's not, that's where that's the 15% of 1% gets added on. So $10 would be about $120 to the homeowner per month on a typical household's disposal fee.
Would you say, I'm asking you as a professional, but let me back up. We still don't know. We have 1.2 million, and we have those figures on there per year deficit. That needs to be defined better. First of all, that's just arbitrary. We find out now that that's not all needs. It's partial wants as well. So we need to define that a little bit so we understand what we're making up ground for.
To be fair to Tetra Tech BS, they did give me a lot more detail. I just didn't want to overburden you with the detail. But I do agree.
We can talk about that at another time too. We can talk about all that at another time. Man, I forgot where I was going to go with that now. I backed up too far in my mind. Didn't catch up. Go ahead with something else, and I'll find it. I'll figure it out.
At 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come back to what you're discussing though. I've got that as a way to reduce expenses or a way to think about it. Prioritizing things like that.
I just remembered what I was going to ask. In your opinion, we have an entire market that we're not capturing out there right now due to the fact that we were at one point making this mandatory in high-density areas, and we had to back off from that because of a single person who thinks we did the wrong thing. And
not naming any names?
Yeah, and I'm not naming any names, but I just think that we need to understand that we're shooting the customers in the foot by not spreading this out throughout the county, and we're not dealing with the real trash issue, the real problem of trash collection here in our county as well. So there's two issues that are developed as a result of not being in a mandatory collection situation.
Chairman, if I may, Mr. Carlton actually has a lot of these answers already in the presentation, and I know it's very important to get these out there, but many of the questions you're asking are a part of the presentation, and so a lot of these solutions we have on the table, so we want to get those to you, but we've thought about many of those issues as well, and so I think that is the next topic, the partial mandatory. But yeah, a lot of this has been thought through, and I think that we can get those on the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll direct you to the lower left there as partial mandatory. Just to be honest, when I first came here, I suggested you go full mandatory, and I was told you that's not the way that we do it here in Madera County. But we did come back with a discussion about the fact that there is benefits to economies of scale. There's benefits in pricing, and we were able to negotiate those benefits in pricing through the franchise agreements. And we came back. I'll go right to that slide here. About, I want to say, maybe 2 years ago, 2014, with a recommendation to look at areas that were defined as high density by Madera standards. You know, we're not talking about LA here, but we are talking about, I think it was 12 areas, roughly. I think it was 12 areas that were considered high density. And we recommended that for those areas that service be mandatory. That's why we're calling it partial mandatory. And I think that the benefits to that are, for those areas, they would receive better pricing. There was actually a negotiated better service and better pricing for those service areas. The county would get more customers. So I asked the question, I guess a week or so ago, and we got a little bit some information as to, well, since the franchise operators are in these areas, how many of these customers are already, part of that solution? I believe the answer was, maybe the majority. 70, 80% may already be in there. So what are we talking about in terms of additional customers that could happen? We have about 16,000 customers between the two franchisees. For the Valley, I believe it's around 9,000 customers, and I think the Mountains around 7,000. I'll take a guess that you might be able to get 10% more out of that. So that's another 1,500 customers, plus or minus. And what that would equate to in terms of a landfill disposal, additional customers, I think would be around $100,000 a year. So give you a sense, if you went partial mandatory, three things happen. One is you'll have more franchise money, because your number of your customers and your revenue goes up, so the franchise money that comes to the county. Two, the customers that are in those franchises will get better service at a lower price. I believe that is in the franchise agreements. There are provisions for that. And three is you'll raise additional money to the landfill operation through about roughly $100,000. So again, in terms of a tool in your chest that you can look at, that's one of the options that can take place. One of the items that I know Supervisor Rogers has mentioned too is that, why don't we look at different types of waste? Waters, sludges, things of that nature that are an untapped source of potential revenue, and could also have gas benefits by providing moisture to the microbes that are in the landfill and feeding off of the organic material. And I don't know to what extent that's been looked at, but I would suggest that if there is a type of waste that could be applied for through a permitting process and secured, it's revenue that, and to be honest, especially if it enhances degradation, actually will make the landfill volume settle, because that organic matter is turning into gas and is allowing you to get a much denser landfill. So there's multiple benefits if it can be managed well. And that's where the discussions like, how do you do it? There's a lot of devil in the details aspects of it. But I would suggest that could be part of it, as well as are there additional sources of waste? Can you go to some of your customers? Can you go to Mid-Valley? Can you go to Red Rock, and talk to them about other sources? Maybe at what price? I think those are always discussions. If we could add another 100,000 tons of waste to the landfill, given the fact that you have to pay $12 a ton out of all that, you still may be able to make around $350,000 a year as a net. just to give you a sense. So you start adding these things together, and maybe you can start to have a picture. And lastly, we did talk about the landfill gas energy. Sure.
Excuse me, John. As far as the waste types, I know Alan Davis has approached us many times of coming up with different waste types that we can do, the waste water and the dead animals, for example. And I know we are in the process of the permit revision. It's being revised as we speak. Within 6 months, maybe we'll get an answer. And those waste types are included in that. But once this is approved, we need to come up with a way to establish rates for those special wastes. So it's in the making.
You might want to do some kind of in proximity study of what they're paying now, because a lot of these types of waste are being transported to Kettleman City, way out of the area. It's got to be expensive. Anything that goes to Kettleman's got to be expensive. And that's just, I think that's a no-brainer when it comes to City of Chowchilla and Madera, City of Madera. They're disposing of sludge. That's a part of their process. That sludge could be disposed of in our landfill, begin the process of breaking down the organic matter and develop a greater gas potential for the site.
Again, one thing I want to suggest is that you need to have the facility designed to handle it.
Right.
Your gas system's got to be capable of managing it. You've got to be able to do it in such a way that minimizes odors.
That all goes with it.
The operator's got to be able to be comfortable with it. So there's a lot of details that need to be worked out. And I'm not saying that, that it wouldn't have value. And I think that's why I put it on here. I think it does have warrant further consideration, but it's not just as simple as bringing it in.
No, it's not. It's not ABC.
Yeah, we also want to make sure that it's safe. I mean, there's a lot of problems for the residents of Kettleman City with cancers and drinking water problems. And so, before we get into that, I mean, we have to make sure that it is done perfectly. I just want to.
Right.
Yeah. The fact is, though.
One more question, and let's continue, then we can ask our questions later, because, I mean, I think you guys are going to be answering a lot of these questions like Norm said, so.
Let's move on.
Max, do you want to say something?
Yeah, John, as far as the gas is not just gas, right? There's a quality of gas that has to be at a certain point so you can sell it.
Yes, so landfill gas is around half carbon dioxide and half methane. Typical is when their gas system is compromised, you get more air intrusion into your landfill gas, or if the waste is very highly degraded, it won't produce as much methane. So you end up with a lower quality gas, and that's where you're at now. You're below 50% methane, which is, I don't know if it's 48 or 50% is where you need to be in order to maintain a certain thing. So you're not there yet. I think there is, ideas that were kicked around today. We had a meeting where we talked about they could isolate certain wells, direct that to a gas system, and maybe that could be done that. I do completely agree with Tetra Tech that there is a need to look at the feasibility of landfill gas energy, because there's costs. There's not only the cost to do this infrastructure, there's also cost for engines, or there's cost to do the CNG systems, the gas conditioning systems. All of that stuff costs money, and there is value. There's value, on the fuel value. There's value to the electricity, but it's a cost benefit, and that's where that study needs to be done, because that may help direct you to say, well, unfortunately, our landfill is not able to make sense, or yes, it does make sense, and then that will help make that decision clearer, and it's just a matter of cost benefit.
If it doesn't make a profit, why do it?
Right. Well, that's exactly the point. So that is something that probably needs to be done, because it could be a source of revenue, or it may not be, but it's something that needs to be looked at. We talked about partial mandatory. So in terms of decreasing expenses, I'd like to give Ahmad some credit for pushing, I guess, to get an answer on an alternative closure design. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, actually, this it's rehashing an old point. Back in 2008, the county did submit to the Water Board an alternative cover, final cover, which is an evapotranspirative cover, which is cheaper than a lined closure. And then back in 2014, with the help of Tetra Tech as well, we submitted another request to the Water Board where we at with this issue, and they sent back requiring more information. And we sent all the information, and just last week, was it, that we received, we could say, an email approval that it went through the approval process. So we have some funds that will be released. It's just a matter of time now just to go through the processes with the Department of Water Resources, and after that we get our Cal Recycle to release the funds.
So that helps in two things. One, long-term, your long-term liability from the closure and post-closure cost maintenance standpoint is dramatically changed. And two, is that if you've overfunded that account based on a pro rata use of their landfill, you can get that money released. And that can help your financial picture. So, you know, the clarity of that is, looks like it's becoming more into focus. I know that, again, when we were brought in 2012, that was on the table. We knew that was going to happen. We were counting on that to happen. And unfortunately, it's taken, 4 years to get to the point where they've at least issued an email saying that it's in the works.
I had to beg for the email.
So 4 years from now, we will be in a position, hopefully we'll get the second email from Cal Recycle saying that.
Done deal, huh?
Yeah, so no, I think it's a matter of pushing that point home and getting that done. That's part of it. That's going to be an important part. I think that's in the millions of potential savings. But you are looking at, potential cost structures in the $8 million the next 5 years that need to be potentially covered. So, while it's not ever recommended, deferring capital, again, needs versus wants, it could be part of the discussion. I'm not in a position to sort of go through, and I think that's something that would be, Tetra Tech would need to be at the table to really advise on what, we'll call it triaging. Where you look at in an emergency room where they take the most critical care and they address that first. It may need to be something of that, to try and triage this situation, possibly. Again, it's one of the things that can be brought to the table. Financing capital, depending on the lifetime of the capital. I know you're basically, funding it out of cash right now. Other entities do finance capital. I think that would be, it's not something that, I don't think that the lifespan of most of this capital is long enough to finance, but, it's one thing to think about.
How do you finance something that keeps going in a hole every minute?
Right, exactly.
I know I can need that capital.
I want to borrow $1 million, so we'll owe another $1 million next year.
There may be other ways to reduce costs as well, and I think that that would need to be explored. But really, if we're trying to, I'm sure there's a lean budget right now. I'm sure there's not a lot of fat that's being. There's not a lot of staffing. There's not a lot that can be done. But nonetheless, if there's ways to look at reducing other costs, that's something that would need to be at least put on the table. I think. I don't really have any specific ideas on that. I think there was the discussion of, is this too much? What other options, are there? There are, entities that have either leased or sold their assets. This is an asset of the county. It serves a purpose for the county from the standpoint of providing for solid waste disposal in your county over your planning horizon. Right now, your landfill, I think, based on the current rate of filling, is 2042? 2047, excuse me, 2047. So you have quite a bit of life, 31 years of life left in this landfill. Now you could fill it up a lot faster, which still may serve your purposes. And, typical planning horizons, 20 years. There are options maybe to expand the landfill even further that could give you a comfort level to operate at a higher volume. Supervisor?
Ahmad, have we received final approval to go vertical over there?
Yes, we have.
We have? When did that happen?
When did we get the vertical?
3 years ago?
3 or 5 years ago? Yes.
3 probably.
Okay.
But there are the options that you could this is an asset that you could lease. There are other examples of communities that have taken their asset, given the operating rights of that asset, given the operating responsibility, including capital responsibility, to a private entity, with or without, a whole lot of restrictions, and they get a lease payment. So, that is a way to potentially, whether or not you want to be in the business of this, this is a way to, take this asset, maybe provide the service during the life of whatever remaining capacity is, and to do that. There's also the sale of the asset completely outright, which you would have, no further rights to or no responsibilities for. One of the things I will say in terms of the selling or leasing is that any business who's going to do this is going to try to maximize the utilization of the asset within whatever reasonable parameters it can. Your lifespan of 2047 would probably significantly be reduced. Whether or not they're going to operate the same quality that you are, I think that there's protections you can put in there to maintain permit, compliance to, nuisance, no odors, things of that nature that you can put in there as an operating contract, but you do lose some control of it, and so that is one of the downsides, if you will, of doing something like that. But these are options that, if you're interested in, could be explored as well. So really, I think from here, I'm looking to either answer questions, or we're here to hear from you as to what you're looking for in terms of, guidance as to the things that may be acceptable to you. Norm?
John's finished here and did a good job. I just wanted to give some just closing comments about a few things. I've been looking at this, and that's a little bit, quote, an outsider. I was on the other side of the third floor, or the old JCPenney as this happened. I mean, some of the things we looked at, I agree. Getting out of our previous arrangement, I think, in the long run is better, but it had an effect. I think the loan, and depending upon that loan to be cash flowed through increased revenue coming in from more service, that was an effect, right? And I know we still want to do that. In fact, I'm here today to tell you I agree with not only partial mandatory. I have been a fan of 100% mandatory. I understand the economics of it, but as you know, you've heard me talk about the fly cycle. Every 7 to 10 days, if you don't have your trash rotating out, you're generating rodents, you're generating flies. 60%, this is coming from Joe Yeager, 60% of the complaints environmental health gets relates to people not taking care of their trash. It's domestic trash issues. So roughly 60%. And you've seen that memo, we've done it. So, getting partial mandatory or full mandatory isn't about revenue as much as there's a health issue there to be addressed. And as you know, now in the old days you could burn your trash, that solves the health problem, but now we have an air quality issue, right? And then of course the fact that there's an actual fire issue. You never know when people burn stuff whether or not they're going to do it correctly. What about friend from Cal Fire? So when we think about those things, it's important for us to think about that. We did look, again, the leasing option, that was our previous model we had with our previous contractor. Now, I would imagine we would do a better job of monitoring that lease option in the past because, quite frankly, deferred maintenance is what we got here today. That's that ugly government term of deferred maintenance, right? That's what happened was maintenance, our previous leasee deferred a lot of capital improvements. And you're right, this is stuff that has to be done. The nice to have part of this is very small. And you've heard me say this, and you see it every day. Regulations don't go backwards. They get harder every year to do. Now, we did check what's nice about another option we have in there. As you know, the franchise fee is quite good, 6%. If you do sell the facility, the franchise fee does still stay in place. So that 6% does still happen. That franchise fee is for the privilege of using the roads and all that. So that's still a good opportunity for revenue if the county were to liquidate the facility. That, as John said, you lose a little bit of control that way. And then you could be subject to, our constituents could be subject to some free market forces. In other words, it would cost them more for that. But the franchise fee stays in place, which is a direct benefit to the general fund. So that's a good thing to point out. So I just wanted to point out some of the big picture things. But in general, the deferred maintenance has caused this. And the fact that regulatory requirements will continue to get tougher in the next 5 to 10 years, those costs may quite well be accurate. So I know you have a lot of tough decisions to make. I know there's been lots of talk about it, and we have lots of smart people here. I just wanted to summarize things a little bit, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Yeah. How do we get where we are now? Where were we going? Were we going into the hole when we had the other people running it? Or were they just floating with no improvements and breaking environmental laws to get where we are? Because we had $1.5 million in our liner fee all the time, and then all of a sudden now we're $1 million in debt per year. So what's the difference?
I think Norm said it correctly. Hopefully I can call him Norm.
Mr. Allen.
Chief. No, Norm's fine.
Chief?
Norm's fine.
You had deferred maintenance that was not maintained, so you ended up starting, when the contract started, at a point where
we're in a hole.
You didn't realize you were in a hole, but
Right.
you were.
Catch up.
We did set rates initially that didn't leave a lot of room for capital expenditure, and I think we discussed that. We kind of
didn't
knew
really
that.
maybe know some of the flaring. I mean, we found out after
There was
took
not
it over.
there was
found out
not a
after
knowledge
they
at that
drove one
point
with a ship.
of there was no knowledge of the capital needs that were needed at that point.
Right.
There was an understanding that maybe, but nobody really knew.
So we got people that could tell us the real story. And then the other question is, what happens if we sell it, and then whatever year it fills up, who's responsible then?
Well, I think the counties are typically looked to provide for a plan for disposal. That plan could be a disposal facility within the county. It could be for disposal agreements outside the county. You could build a transfer station at the Fairmead landfill and develop some long-term agreements with some of the.
That would be a long-term agreement with whoever we sell it to? How do
You
you plan for something that right now we own, we sell it, say Red Rock, they got
Right.
their own company in Fresno they own,
Right.
a landfill. So our landfill fills up, say just 2040. I don't know, whatever the year it might be.
Yep.
If they do it quicker, if they own it, they might do it quicker.
likely would.
What's the supervisor's responsibility if they fill that thing up and they say, we're going to now charge you $100 a ton to haul it to Fresno?
Right. Well, you pay $100 a ton potentially.
Is it our responsibility? That's what I'm saying. Is it the supervisor?
I think
if
it's
we
the-
sell it,
Yeah.
are we responsible for what they're going to charge our public?
I think you've taken on the role of providing for infrastructure within your county to provide for solid waste disposal. I think that there's different ways you can do that. When the landfill fills, you're going to face with that same question.
Right.
Either
I
expanding the
agree.
landfill.
We've been
provide-
buying land.
Right, exactly. So, this 2047 actually could be something much different. And one of the things that I believe is that there's probably expansion potential beyond what you even realize that you have right now. So that may give you cushions on future. And I would definitely look at that before, too long. But you have time between now and then. I think that boards that you may not be here in 2047 at that point when those decisions will be made. But fair enough. Power to you. I think that it's a service that the county provides to its residents, and you're going to be faced with looking. Maybe there's technologies that's going to come along. People look at waste energy technologies. They look at zero waste. I know the county wants to, or the state wants to go to very low disposal rates. I mean, who knows? What the future will hold. I wish I had that crystal ball, but. I think it's prudent that you think of it from a planning perspective as well as everything else, and realize that it's always planning it's always going to be there as long as there's solid waste generated, and the county supervisors will have that responsibility as they go forward. With the 2047 horizon right now, I think you've got a good cushion, and you're going to have to monitor it and discuss it and look at options down the road. And I think you can get advice along the way, too, as you start to approach these things as to what options may be available. Maybe there is a sister county or a neighboring county that has capacity and will guarantee a 20-year capacity to you. You sign up for a disposal rate and, you build a facility to transfer it, and maybe that's how you do it at that point. I think who knows until you sort of get closer to that.
Brett?
Supervisor Wheeler, also just to answer your question, one of the first tasks that Tetra Tech BAS were asked to do is to do a site investigation. and bring to us a report of findings. And on that report of findings, it turns out these are the immediate needs in capital improvement, and this is what we look for in a year or two, and we had a 5-year plan. But the further we got in, and upon that, that became our, let's say, roadmap to be in compliance. And that's where our reserves in the bank basically were used to bring us back into compliance. So coming into it, we were...
Like his report says, it's still building what we're going to be spending to make us in compliance.
Correct. So if we quadruple the amount of just gas collection, not only quantity, also quality of gas.
Right. Oh, exactly.
In almost 2 years, less than 2 years. So just imagine where that gas was going.
Right. Yeah, very good. Right. Okay, and I just wanted to clarify earlier when I had said we're not running or running it poorly. That's not, I mean, I was just talking
we are not running it.
Between the private sector who's for-profit trying to make it work. There's just an inherent reason for them to run more efficiently, I guess is the way I should have said it. So no, offense to anybody. I know we're doing a good job, but I was just trying to.
Our team out here is doing a great job.
Yeah, and I do agree with that, but I think we can do better or could. Looking at the diversion rates that we're trying to get to in terms of the recycling. I mean, I've heard that landfills are they're not building anymore. At some point they're going away. I mean, they're trying to regulate even packaging of toys to where you have no packages. That we're trying to get to where we're not having to use them as much. Is 2047 maybe a more likely time to get to? That's one. If we do lease it to someone else, the regulatory burdens that we have to deal with as a county then passes to the leaseholder, or does that still remain with us as the owner of it? Who covers those costs? Would that have to be in the lease, that they are the ones that cover the cost of any capital expenditures, so that the county doesn't end up bearing that burden for the, it's just something that we would have to put in the lease, I think. If you can comment on that, that's number two. And then, what was it? One of the questions that I think Tom had brought up, if it gets to the end where it's completely filled up before the 2047, and we don't, what do we do after that? Does it go to $100 to go to there? I would say that if we look into our agreements that we have with our haulers, that we start putting in provisions just now, even though we're far away from 2047. But if we're thinking about it now, that once there's no capacity in our landfill, that it would go to the free market at other different areas and not hold them accountable to have to still bring it to there. But that you can let those prices go to the free market and be much more attractive to the ratepayers. So those are my 3 comments. Go.
I'll try to address them. I think that there's a lot of thoughtful planning to try to reduce waste. The reality is that we've been trying to reduce waste since Earth Day 1970 or whenever it was, and if anything, we have leveled off our generation of waste. We still create quite a bit of waste per person. I think California is one of the more aggressive states with things like organics bans and looking at trying to push that public discussion on that. I think it's anyone's guess that what's going to happen in 2047, but I'm going to guess that solid waste disposal facilities will still be around. They may look a little different. Hopefully, I mean, I'm not a big landfill disposal proponent, but I do think it's an important part of any type of system that they're going to still be a component of that. And, as supervisors, you're going to need to track and see what's going on and sort of judge that as it comes. It's anyone's guess as to what happens at that time. I mean, it could be 2047. It could extend a lot longer if waste is reduced. or it could, fill up faster. And the good thing is you'll have, I think, time to see it coming and hopefully make decisions as you go.
And is that 2047 figure, is that
Guesstimate.
guessing based on population growth and everything?
I think it's based on current rate of filling.
Correct. Caleb, good.
Current rate of filling or current rate of filling plus?
Plus the reductions of state. I mean, the state, what, in 2020 or 2022 or something, there's another
So it's an
level?
educated guess?
No. It's educated.
Chairman, Board of Supervisors, Caleb Moore. Those life cycles for landfills are just that. They're guesses. They're very good guesses, but they really should be framed in terms of ranges based on tonnages, populations, the economy. There's a lot of factors that go into those life cycles.
Clear solid waste.
It's really funny. Since I've got the recyclable now, my garbage, I only probably do it every other week now because I don't even. I haven't had a full garbage can since we went to recyclables. The garbage is so much less. It's just shocking to me, but my recyclable bin is full every 2 weeks because it come every 2 weeks. It's crazy. So that makes the difference. And isn't there a law that there has to be more percentage of the recyclables done by a certain date?
Yeah, Christine Arbogast, my boss, actually could probably talk a lot more to that. But there are a lot of recycling initiatives. There's organics bans and a lot of these things. And some of these regulations are so new, they actually don't even have teeth in them. They don't even have like a fine associated with it, if you will. And it's going to be a very long time before a lot of people can catch up. I believe in this. Hopefully we don't have one giant landfill, 10, 20 generations from now. But there is a need for the landfills. If you go to a fully integrated system to where you're doing waste to energy, dirty MRFs, and those types of things, you actually increase. You're going to have to spend a lot of money on the back end and a lot of money and time on the front end at your home, upstream of the waste, downstream. A lot of the counties that are actually getting involved in this, they're looking at, on the low end of $90 to $100 a ton and upwards of $200 a ton to dispose and process the waste, and they're still not getting rid of the landfill. There's still a residual and inert waste that will have to go to a landfill that they can't take care of. And the recycling markets, you touch this water, the waves go all the way across the lake with solid waste, and it affects everybody on a social scale, and all the way up to what you're doing in your house. In those recycles, everybody takes their pizza box and throws it in there. They think they're doing a great job, but actually that box is contaminated, all the clean paper in there. And so I
noticed that.
You actually create a detriment to that recycling, because then now that paper waste is worth a lot less on the open market. So there's a lot of education that has to happen with the end users, upstream, downstream, and everywhere in between. So this is going to be a long process to go through. I can't imagine that the state, from my vantage point, which is limited, is going to change overnight or in the next. I'm going to stay in this industry. I'm going to stay a consultant as a landfill engineer. I'm not leaving. So I kind of believe that these are going to be around for quite a while.
Sorry, David, I interrupted.
That's all right. But I have it's part of the that I had asked before about the lease. Where does the burden lie with the county?
We'll go to number 2.
Because I know I usually get passed up on when I have follow-up questions.
All right, well, we're going to number 2 then for you. So I think that you need a good attorney to help guide you through this, but in general, the state probably will not let you off the hook, but you can pass the liabilities along through indemnifications. You can pass fines along. Obviously, there's things I think you can do in a lease agreement to protect yourself. Like same if you lease an apartment, the tenant has certain responsibilities for doing the right thing, otherwise they get dinged. But still, as a building owner, you still have the certain responsibilities. So I think you're not let off the hook completely, but you have the ability to put standards of practice, put indemnifications, put insurance requirements, put parent company guarantees, put whatever you want to put in there to try to de-risk the county from that process.
Triple net lease it, do all kinds of, throw everything in it.
This is one of the most
Thank you.
this is one of the most regulated industries in the world, and unfortunately, the cost of that regulation is going to be passed on to the consumer no matter how it happens. Even at the business level, I think it's AB 1826 that source separating and certain businesses where they have like food products and stuff have to be taken out, and then you've got AB 1594 that is going to require by 2020 that green waste doesn't count as diversion any longer, and we're going to end up in a real quandary about how to meet our diversion requirements percentages when we've been counting green waste all along. And green waste, of course, will probably be banned from landfills in this situation to begin with. So, that we're going to be in a real quandary in that situation because of the tonnage. The tonnage is going to be reduced significantly unless it's brought in and then separated out or some way or another. Am I right?
Theoretically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it all depends on how things get implemented, but theoretically, the organics are, 30 or 40% of the waste stream between green waste and food waste, and
so it's going to add up to it. If you do the math on it, I mean, it's just I don't know how we can continue to churn on this without the volume. We've got to have the volume to have economy of scale, and you're losing volume rather than gaining along the way. It's crazy.
Chairman and
Yeah,
supervisors, I know Caleb mentioned that this is more my area of expertise, but I think I've trained him well because he answered that question pretty well. We have on one side of our department the landfill engineers and then the diversion planners, so we collide every once in a while. And it is an ongoing question what impact and when these regulations are going to have on the industry. And I would say even for the green waste, by 2020, it isn't going to be counted as diversion, but if there's no other place to take that waste, it'll still be coming to the landfill.
Yep.
And I think that's a lot of the challenge right now in California is developing the infrastructure that's needed to manage the organics that 1826 is regulating. There aren't any teeth or enforcement for that right now, and I think a reason for that is that there is no infrastructure to really manage that waste, and it is costly. And there are several facilities that have come online in California to address this, but they're having a lot of growing pains. And,
composting facilities specifically?
anaerobic digestion facilities, a lot of issues with contamination, even the collection systems that have to come online in order to separate organics. It's just going to be a very long process before we have to, in order to address that issue.
It's a shame that the state doesn't take a second look or better look, I would say, at biomass as well, because of the byproducts of biomass are very beneficial to agriculture. The use of carbon for water reductions,
right.
and those kind of things are very necessary. So they need to take a look at the whole picture. Instead of killing an industry, look at how they can make it better and utilize it better. And I think that's an important thing, because at one point, we've got a lot of trees around, and a lot of those orchards get removed, and they were chipped up, and those went into biomass plants. Now people are paying more and more for the disposal of those situations, and it's not being done in a way that's beneficial to the environment.
Well, there's a lot of discussion of that going on in the state.
Yeah. Right.
Supervisor Frazier, I'll get to your last point.
All right.
All right. You asked about the fact that, planning for the fact that maybe the landfill won't be around, and maybe our current contract should have some provisions that allow us to, to take that into consideration. And I will say that helping to draft these franchise agreements, the county does have the right to redirect them to a approved facility. So the county has designated the approved facility as the Fairmead landfill at the moment. They have the right, the county does, you do, have the right to direct your franchises to an alternate facility. And, I don't think it speaks to the cost implications of that, because who knows where the facility is and at what price and all that kind of things. But you do have the right at this point, in case the Fairmead landfill is unable to accept waste, to
So we
direct
already
it.
have some of those provisions already.
You have them in your current franchise agreements.
And so now, with this, just kind of, I think, wrap this up. I think if we have some good options here, if we can come back maybe with some pros and cons of each one, how to implement it, and dollar amounts, what it's going to cost, what it really looks like for the county. Just first blush, I like the lease portion. I'd like to look into that more, but maybe come back. How long do you think it would take?
Well, one thing I thought of suggesting was to do a couple scenarios. Try to run, find out if there's anything off the table. Try to get some feedback from you as to what your tolerances are for, say, rate increases. See what,
I think mandatory collection, I think is.
So I'm looking, if I can get some feedback, I can maybe try to bundle some things and try to give you a sense for, if you do this, this is the impact of this. But I don't know if there's anything off the table from your standpoint.
I think we have to look at looking at what a rate increase, what it would do, where it puts us in terms of competitively within our trade area. Is it going to just have to be passed on through our haulers, our franchise haulers? But I think we need to see all the economics of it and make that decision. And if we could see a rate study of the surrounding area to see where we're at and what the market will pay, because if it's maybe $2 more than American, or $3 more than American, the cost of gas is going to be eaten up in that $3.
Right.
So we can make get all the facts together and then let the facts dictate where we go with this decision.
Okay.
I would like to, before we get into closing, I don't think we're there yet, but the other thing too, that what can we do as you're looking at all of this? What can we do to see what it would further cost us to generate electricity, generate biogas, generate all that, so we can make money, basically money into that. I think if we're going to look at keeping this place, we need to generate something from it. I know there's people now looking at biogas that burns wax boxes and all the stuff that you talked about, oil pizza boxes, they'll burn that.
Right.
In the paper industry, you used to have called clean waste, you'd have dirty waste. The dirty waste would go to a boiler or make Presto logs. Maybe we can get an industry in here, who knows. But anyway, I think that's the other way, and I'm really happy with the way that we're heading towards being a generator of that, and I think that's what the future will bring, is become generators from these things, so you don't keep on building mountains, you use it.
Right.
And the plastic bag thing that we went through, the paper industry, what they went through, and now they're saying the plastic bags are no good for landfills now, let's go back to paper bags, or let's go back to reusable
I'd burn them
bags.
all, I don't care.
Yeah. And that's right. We used to burn everything.
I still do.
But I think all options should be, looked at, and I'm really pleased at how far you guys have gotten us into, and Ahmad, your team, to get us into basically selling or being a generator. I'm really happy. Any other thing from the board to the public?
Yeah, if you're going to go to mandatory collection.
What's your name?
Dale Drozen.
I see that first every time.
Every time.
Hey, you might have got away with it in Fresno. Now you're back here where it counts.
Okay. Everything counts here. If you're going to go to the mandatory collection, you need to do some more research on the areas. I don't know about the rest of the Madera County, but in Rolling Hills, there's a lot of people have dumpsters. And more than one house is putting trash in those dumpsters. So you're not going to pick up that much more by going to these other houses. There aren't houses in there with trash piled around them. If you've got areas that have trash piled around them and have flies, that's a health issue. You need to cite them and get it taken care of. You don't need to tell all the rest of us that we need to do mandatory trash collection. Now, as for the landfill, I've been watching this board since before any of you were on here except Max. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Rodriguez. And that landfill has come up over and over and over again. It's been a losing proposition. I believe that government should not be in anything that they don't absolutely have to be in. There are a lot of landfill operations. There are a lot of just what you're talking about run in the private sector. When you add the government, you add 2, 3, 4 layers on top of that, so the cost can't be taken care of. When the discussion was about economy of scale, you need to figure out how to get more trash coming in so we can make more money. If you raise the price just a little bit, they're going to just take it down to American Avenue because they're cheaper. Why not take it all to American Avenue? Then they can lower their rates even more, and it'll be economical. This is the year of the taxpayer, I think I see on top of the agenda. So give us a break. Turn it over to private enterprise. Either shut this one down and let them all go to American Avenue, or figure out a way to get it. They'll figure out a way to get it in and make money. But this board and this county running it has been bad from the time I started watching. They didn't have money to do the liners, and they made a lot of changes, and now we find out that the changes were deferring maintenance, and it's going to come back and bite us now. And now we can't do it without raising the rates. But if you have to raise the rates, run it like a special district. This is what it costs to run it. This is what you'll pay to have your trash taken there. Thank you.
Hey, J.O., on my third thing I didn't ask a while ago, because Brett kind of said, I said, what about going to the free market now, take it to Fresno? I actually put that on there. So.
See, I asked Dale to move back into District 1 so he can help me with my points.
Yeah. Yeah, 4, 5, yeah, you do. Hey.
Push the button, it'll work. Martin, hi John. Ashley Smith from Amadco. I just want to let you guys know, obviously this situation, you need to try and make some improvements with it. We're happy to meet with whoever we need to meet with to put in our private sector ideas of what may or may not help. Different ideas like self-haul permits and different situations. We're a little concerned with the mandatory, while it would raise the revenue for our company, being able to tell people that they are required, a private company telling them they're required to have our service. We're very concerned about that. We kind of feel like if the county wants to have it be mandatory, then it's a county issue, to where at that point maybe the county needs to collect the revenues or have teeth behind it for us if the revenues aren't collected. Because we have the hard numbers of exactly how many people are in those areas that have service, that don't, basically down to the household. Then we've got the scale of how much we charge out currently now to what the reduced price would be if it goes to mandatory, because we do get a bigger pool. And obviously, like for picking up the trash, it's closer per stop. So we feel that we're hauling most of the trash out of the mountain area already, one way or another, whether people take their trash to work, take it down to their dumpsters or whatever they're doing. But, so we don't
take it to North Fork.
North Fork, yeah. Which is, we often get told that North Fork's a lot cheaper than our service. So it's good to know that. But we're just a little concerned that if we do get forced to pick we're not forced to pick people up. When we start picking people up, we do need to get the revenues, and it's important for the county to get the revenue as well, because the franchise fee is only for what revenues we collect. So the bad debt, obviously, the county's not going to be paid off on that. But anyway, we're happy, any meetings John has, if John comes to town and with Ahmad and Lorenzo, any input we can put in. We're actually bound by our contract, and we understand that. But there's a few different ideas that we have that may or may not help.
I mean, you should be included.
I don't think we can rustle up $1 million, but I think we could...
Half, maybe.
We could help it a little bit here and there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Rick? Yeah, I just, Richard, on the, how much do you average per day in North Fork, the tonnage? The people bring it in, not what the haulers bring in or anything? You got any idea?
Is it on? Yep. Alan Davis from Red Rock. North Fork does about 30 tons a day.
Really?
Yeah. So it's quite a bit, and that's why I said,
Wow.
and we're the same thing as far as partial mandatory. It's in our contract. Would be more business. Whatever you guys decide to do, you do. But I would just comment that a lot of the partial mandatory, those people are already hauling their trash someplace, and it's probably already making it to the landfill. So I wouldn't count on very much extra tonnage.
There wouldn't
coming.
be a whole bunch more.
No.
Well, there wouldn't be, because just like Dale said, there'd be garbage all over these people's yards. I mean, there are a few, but not like
Yeah.
50
They're already-
ton. They're probably not 50 ton because
No, they're already sharing dumpsters, like he said. They're self-hauling it themselves. I mean,
30 ton, that's
yeah. There's not that much leakage, I don't think, of garbage that's going out of the county away from Fairmead. So by going to partial mandatory, I don't really see where you're going to increase your tonnage much into the landfill. We are required to bring at least 200 tons a day, and I can tell you we've been averaging more like 300 tons a day. So we've already
Wow.
got you an extra 100 tons coming into the landfill through our company. Last month, matter of fact, we averaged 860 tons for the landfill. So we're working very hard to do all we can to increase your tonnage and to help get those
Get that
numbers
dollars
up.
up.
Yeah. So, and I think
Well, I
that's the
appreciate
best
that
way is to
very
keep,
much.
working together with us and let us find tonnage in larger quantities than just a couple little pieces here, a pound of there, a pound there.
Yeah, I just want to say you guys have really changed the way we do business out there, and that's great. I mean, I think it's much, much better. I think, I just want your opinion on what Mr. DeRosian said, and I thought a lot about this too. Sometimes we focus in on all the wrong things, trying to get everybody on the same system, and the mandatory thing. My biggest issue in the county right now with people who aren't on the system and aren't having their trash hauled is that we've got a lot of people dumping trash on farmers and on in the sloughs and on bridges. Oh, we had a guy drive past our house, drop a couch. No kidding, drop a couch, and he was dropping stuff
In your
all the way
yard?
down the road. Didn't
How does it look?
care.
How does it look in the living room?
Wouldn't go in my living room, brother.
You know,
Then I get a call when I'm on vacation from a man who's they dumped a big pile of trash there in the slough next to his house and set it on fire, and it was smoldering. And this is an issue. This is just a huge.
But it's not as bad as it used to be 10 years ago. It used to be 10 times worse up there anyway. I don't know about down here.
Down here, it's bad.
It's not as
It's
bad as
really
it used
bad.
to be. Don't you guys think it's not as bad? I mean, because we watch them. I think our police watch them, our sheriff, and we catch them, a pile. They go through it and find the address, and we've nailed them. And I don't see it, and I travel more now than I used to, and I don't see nearly the garbage I used to.
I think it's more debris, like Mr. Rogers is saying, and the mandatory service isn't going to stop that.
That's absolutely
They're
will
not.
not.
They're
not
regular
gonna-
trash with their addresses and all
They're
their
not
mailing
going to do
it.
a couch anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
couches,
They're not gonna do a
tires,
refrigerator.
mattresses.
And I think we need maybe stiffer penalties on people who pile their trash up, create a health
Right,
issue.
I agree too.
Stiffer penalty on that, and focus in on, give our code enforcement the authority to get in there and take care of that issue, because that's a public safety issue.
Yeah, and not just building a higher fence around it.
No,
You've got to actually
right.
clean it up. Yeah.
Right, actually clean it up, and, because, like Norm said, the problem is one that affects everybody, the flies, the rodents, and then, of course, the the appearance of our county as well. It's just really a mess when people take their trash out in the country and dump it on somebody's property.
Yeah, I got a challenge for you. 2 weeks ago, I was driving up from on a Saturday from Oakhurst to North Fork, and those two there, and plus two of their employees were out on the side of the road picking up trash for those pickers. I didn't get to take a picture because I had a bunch of car around, but I put it on Facebook, and I had all kinds of thank yous. Do you guys do that from Red Rock?
Yes, absolutely. It's actually part of our contract that there's so many tons that we're supposed to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we get calls all the
Well,
time.
I was going to do a
We've had calls
challenge,
from
and you guys
supervisors.
are already doing it.
Yeah, we've had calls from supervisors about piles, about illegal dumping, going and cleaning up, and so we go all the time, and that's part of our contract.
You guys have been great about it, too. I've had several circumstances in our district where you took care of that, so appreciate it. But I think staff, we need to look into stiffer penalties, fines.
And more signage, that it's $1,000 fine if we catch your ass throwing that stuff out.
Yes, we will
need
work
more
with
signage.
council
With that
with
verbiage, or can we?
That'd be better. Don't you think it'll work better?
Let's go. We're getting out of control here. Let's go. Come on.
Just, okay, as the operator of the landfill, if you were to have a leasehold interest in it, do you think that you could increase the amount of tons that come through there? Would it be a good idea to do you think, I mean, no one knows that landfill better than you at this point.
I think you definitely need to look into that as an option, yeah. There is a possibility we could increase the tonnage. There is a lot of other capacity in the area, which was mentioned, and the prices are pretty low at some of those other landfills. It's a supply and demand business, like any other business. It's driven by that. And there is a lot of landfill capacity in Merced County and in Fresno County and down in Kings County and Tulare County. So there's just a lot of capacity right now. But the key is more tonnage, that's for sure. Like John said, we need more tonnage to drive that up. You need to continue to look at your rates and your costs. I think your rates are very low, that you should probably look at those rates.
I'm hungry. My stomach's telling me so.
Yeah, I think it's something you definitely need to look into.
Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Well, let's wait. Okay, okay. Anybody else? Okay, I really appreciate you going to say something, Richard, real quick, since you came back early?
Don't you think the face of Madera County has to say something? Just a little something? Can I close?
Come on, let's go.
No, I just want to say thank you for the workshop this afternoon. It's been very informative, and we have been in ongoing discussions with Madera County and most of the officials here with regard to the situation at the Fairmead landfill, and we are very interested in helping you meet some of your financial challenges and meeting some of your obligations going forward, and more than willing and open to meet with you and confer on helping you solve all those problems. So again, thank you very much, and we look forward to doing a good job in the upcoming decades.
Thanks. Thank you. So directive, what do we have? So
well,
we're looking at all options, basically.
I'll leave it to John, but I think just come up with options with different scenarios and present them to
I think the big one you're hearing a lot is privatize. I think you're hearing that a lot. I think if we can't privatize, what do we do to make it neutral, actually, try to get it to neutral first. And then if we can't do that, where do we go? And it really disturbs me that we have to put volume basically to make money. Volume, of course, that's what does everything in the market. But here we are talking about trash making volume. And so
same business principles.
Yeah, I know. But it's funny. It seems like we've gone so far on recyclables, and then all of a sudden we just came flat as far as we could go. So we're still going to have landfills no matter what we do in the future. We're still going to have all that, but how we do it in Madera County and how we move forward. And I like what Dale said also about, this has been going on for years and years. It's going to go on to 2047, but the way Madera should go on, that's what we need to do. So, okay. Thank you so much.
You're good there on the direction? Yeah.
So what I hear we're asked to do is to come back to the board with some options. So I'll call it some sensitivities, numbers to each one of these things. I heard privatization as well as, all the different strategies and what they would do in terms of trying to get this thing neutral, so you can understand I gave you some rules of thumb, some guidance, but we can put this out into some scenarios.